Well, I thought there was a love fest.
All right, thank you. Hello, good evening, everybody. We've begun. I believe we've done the call to order. The attendance has been taken. We're up to approval of minutes. Madam Secretary, what minutes are we approving tonight?
I move to approve the September 18th, 2012 regular open and closed session meeting.
Minutes?
Minutes. Meeting minutes.
Right, meeting minutes. That's good. That's close.
Okay, that's good. Can I have a second to that?
Andy, seconds.
You?
Anybody want to speak to them? Because I think they've been
As-
distributed. Am I
as-
correct?
as
distributed.
circulated.
Correct. As
Yeah,
circulated.
As circulated. There
Right?
are no.
We're good? Can we go to a vote? Okay, all in favor? It's unanimous.
Okay, move.
Yeah.
She wasn't here.
Were you not here on the 18th?
No, she
Well,
wasn't.
we joined the
September.
September 18th regular meeting.
Oh, you were away. You were in Pennsylvania. Okay, so it's unanimous.
What?
One abstention.
Okay, move
She
to.
remembers everything.
Move to approve the October 15, 2012 special meeting minutes as circulated.
Is there a second?
Second.
Alfred seconds. The October meeting. The one
October 15th
where we
special
passed it
meeting.
into the bylaws issues, right?
Yeah.
We're okay? All right? I think everybody's here. Can we go? We're okay? All right, all in favor? It's unanimous. That's unanimous. Okay, that's good. That's all we have for tonight, right?
Yes.
Because we're
that's
waiting
all.
for,
That's all.
let me make this announcement now. For those of you who don't know, Donna fell in her apartment and broke her elbow. She had surgery yesterday. I have been informed that her surgery is successful, but nobody knows what that means until she goes through the recovery period. From what I understand, it was shattered into multiple pieces. So this is, we're gonna see how this works out, and we've gotta get ourselves back to using the information that goes through Donna's computer and emails and stuff. And we're gonna work on that. Tomorrow I'll speak to her and we'll see what we're gonna do. I'm expecting her to come back on a regular basis, but not full-time necessarily, because she's gonna need physical therapies, pain may bother her, whatever it is. And we're going to hire a temp that can work with me and her and Andy and Yvonne. And Ed, of course. We need, Ed is our main source of all the important information that comes out of the board on Wednesday morning. Okay, so we're all caught up on that. Now, I believe we're up to, am I correct, Richard Blanco? Am I right?
Yes. Richard?
Richard, why don't you come to the table, please? There's a microphone here.
Good evening. Good evening. Everyone should have had this information in their board packet, Exhibit 1, the listing that Richard's going to discuss tonight.
Yes. By the way, Richard, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
You're the man who settled all our claims with Irene and all of that money that we needed to fix this place, so thank you very much.
You're very welcome. A brief history here. My relationship with this organization goes back quite a few years. I first wrote this business when I worked for another insurance company, before I opened up my own business. And that was in 1976.
Before I got here.
So since that time, I started my own business. In this business, kind of like you get business, you lose business. So I got it, I lost it, I got it back again. Most recently, when they talk about this place, they say, you know anything about this place? I said, oh, and the lady over there remembers Max Kushner, who I'm sure was passed. He was the president of that.
Okay.
So it's quite interesting. Generally speaking, the information that I handed out is what we call a summary of insurance, and it basically takes the major policies and goes into it. Not in detail, but enough so that you might want to say what is that, and then I explain in more detail. So I'm open up to the general questions with regard to the coverage, or if you want to go over the claim history, the situation most recently, I can discuss that as well.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So we had a conference call with you, was that with you, or was that with?
On a claim?
No, when we renew general
But
liability.
that was not with him.
That was with you.
Yes.
That was with you.
Right.
Because I remember terrorism came up and we had to charge, pay extra for terrorism. So
Yes.
let's, are you?
Why is there a charge of terrorism?
It says included.
Yes, terrorism is an extra cost for both the general liability and the property insurance. Insurance company.
We don't, we didn't
You
want
don't want
that,
to.
we still don't.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, then if it's, let me just make a note.
So what page is it on?
It's
Just
on
again, you said it's
page
two.
Page two.
Bottom of page two.
I'm confused, what are we looking at right now? What is this?
This is a summary insurance.
Our insurance policy that we
Yes.
currently have right now?
There's three policies listed there, I think. Am I correct? The property,
Property.
the crime,
There's a number of policies. There's
Yeah.
the property insurance, the general liability insurance.
right?
The crime insurance. There's actually an excess crime policy.
Now, are we making it two decision tonight?
No, this is all that's in place.
So then how did terrorism show up? Since when last time we spoke to you, we said we didn't want terrorism.
On the general liability, what
It's a different
page?
policy.
Page two, bottom of page two.
This is not the policy we renewed that time. This is the
Got it.
property.
Got it.
Okay.
This is what?
Thank you.
This is the property insurance, the one that we renewed and we didn't want terrorism coverage, the general liability.
Is terrorism included in the building policy?
I think it's something, it's an extra cost in the property, correct?
It is an extra cost.
Okay, so we'll elect to remove that from the property coverage.
You want to remove terrorism from the
Yes.
property insurance?
Why does it say
Well,
included?
let me make sure. Let me make sure. Does everybody wish to make the terrorism removed from our property since we don't have it in the?
But it
It's
says
10,000,
included. No,
it's
it's
included.
No, it says included, but you said it's extra.
It is actually, there's actually a piece of paper.
It's $13,000 annually.
Right.
What page is it?
That's a separate piece of paper that I gave to Russell.
Oh, so it's not
Because
enough.
we can't add this coverage without their approval, so he's got to sign that document.
No, it was something that you guys discussed before.
Well, here's the thing. First, I just want to check, before I go to a vote, is it we're talking about terrorism insurance on our property coverage. We have several different insurance policies, John, and John, we have several different insurance policies, and we're talking about the fact that we have terrorism coverage with a $10,000 deductible, which costs how much, $13,466, and we're finding out before I go to a vote, and a motion to vote. Is there a consensus that we don't want this on the property? Does anyone disagree with this?
The cost just is how much, 50,000?
13,000.
466.
For,
Terrorism
Just for
on the
that one.
property.
Just to add that to the
That's
property
fine.
insurance.
Does anybody not want to make this motion? All right, I will entertain a motion. Would somebody like to make this motion, Andy? Move.
Move that we elect to not include terrorism coverage in our property insurance.
Okay, is there a second? Alfred seconds it. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Dan?
How do you define terrorism?
Well, an act of terrorism is it's an act that took place on September 11th. It could be an organization such as that, or it could be an individual who decides that he is going to or she's going to, perform some sort of act of terrorism. It's not vandalism. It's not kids coming by and showing paint, on the side of the building. It's someone who basically their intent. Someone has to determine that it was their intent to cause an act of terror.
But what is an act of terror?
I think that the lawyer should probably have to work on it.
Well, yeah, so like, let's say you have a disgruntled employee who decides to, place some kind of an explosive device in our boilers and blow it up, and that causes enormous damage.
Yes.
Is that terrorism?
That's vandalism.
and the cover for that.
Terrorism might be, if I may,
How do you?
might be, a gentleman driving a truck onto our property with high explosives in it and blowing himself up in the truck up on the property, destroying property. That would be terrorism.
That's not a gentleman.
That's
No, but he thought of himself that way before he did it.
But I don't,
Would that be a disclosure, supposed to disclose?
I think.
No, I wasn't
maybe
thinking
it's
of-
close
No.
in a
I mean,
boiler
is that terrorism?
would be vandalism, not
It
terrorism.
could be vandalism too, and I think what, you know,
I mean, terrorism.
it's gonna be determined by some sort of, you know, authority, not us, that basically says, no, this was an organized act of terrorism. Now, is it one man that, now, the guy that kills people in the movie theater, is that an act of terrorism?
I think it depends on the motivation.
Oh, so how do you
But we
figure
are
out what's
Maybe
going on
because it was
with
his
somebody?
girlfriend.
You can
that
decide
it's
that
terrorism.
Well, let me
not to be covered for an act of terror.
So let me ask you a question. If, actually terrorism would have to be defined by the authorities as to whether or not it was.
Right.
So they could categorize it as a criminal act or an act of terrorism. It depends on what they say, and that's how it would fall into coverage. If the higher authority said it's terrorism, we would be covered.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what we think it is.
Right.
It matters what the law, what the commissioner of police says it is, or the secretary of state says it is, or the secretary of defense. That's what we're coming down.
Right, if I went to an insurance company underwriter and I said, what would you cover for an act of terrorism? What would be an act of terrorism? And I know what he or she would say. They would say, well, let's have the act first, and then a decision would be made.
You mean it's not defined in the policy?
Well, I'm sure that there's a definition of an act of terror.
But I think that's what people are asking. Where's the policy saying an act of terrorism?
Well, you can't have a policy that says that, you know, two guys coming into a building wearing, you know, bomb vests, that's considered an act of terror. They say that if the occurrence happens, they will decide whether it was an act of terror or maybe an act of vandalism.
I think it's not defined in the.
The only people that can define terror is the government, not us, after the fact. John? Okay. Maitri, yes,
Then
I'm
does it
sorry.
make sense, I mean, if there is this ambiguity, does it make sense for us to have the coverage, so that if there is a question about, you know, well, if it's vandalism or is it terrorism, then maybe we should be safe with it.
Well, people basically, you know, some questions come up and they say, well, you know, I have a building, I own it on Madison Avenue, it's on 52nd Street. You know, someone's not gonna like single out my building. I said, no, they were singling out the Empire State Building and they missed it and they got your building. That's an act of terror. We paid people downtown Manhattan, whose buildings were damaged, whether they were co-ops or they were rental apartments, just to debris hit those buildings.
Because they had a
They were
terrorism
covered.
clause? Or what if they didn't have a terrorism clause?
To tell you the truth, there wasn't a terrorism clause at that time.
But you paid them anyway.
We paid them because it was, you know, fire damage or something. They were paid under policy, but only after that situation occurred, then the insurance company says, well, we're not gonna write terrorism anymore. We're not gonna write an act of terror. So then the federal government came in and said, well, we will, you know, guarantee hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on payments of terrorism claims or terrorism acts. And that's when the insurance company says, okay, we will, you know, we'll cover it because of everything else, the government is backing it up.
John B?
What is our policy cost us overall?
What does that policy cost?
Not just total.
That clause.
Yeah, more than 13,000, what's the overall policy?
The overall policy, 221,000.
It's roughly
It's a very
6%,
small percent. How much-
about 6%.
So,
And what do other buildings do in this area? Do you have it?
What other buildings?
Yeah.
Other buildings do in this area, do they have it or not?
Well, mostly it's the banks that say you have pride. And you know, I don't know offhand whether or not Wells Fargo would.
I don't think it was included in Wells Fargo.
They didn't say, usually banks come in and say, you know, you have to have a certain amount of coverage, and you gotta have this, that, and the other. And some of them are saying that you have to have terrorism. And I don't know what Wells Fargo.
I'm not so sure.
I don't think it was in there. I was actually talking about this with Mike Riley, the attorney, that was helped on the loan.
Yeah.
And we were discussing things that may or may have been missed. We were discussing the deposit for the operating reserve and other issues. It didn't come up in the conversation, and I remember reading a bit of the section, and I don't recall seeing it either. So it's definitely something we could review, or
that's what it says.
it's definitely something I think we should review.
I have a question.
It puts our loan in jeopardy.
And my question is this. If we don't have terrorism insurance, and damage is done to the property, for whatever reason, even if it's declared terrorism, you won't pay if it's defined as, I mean, the insurance company won't pay if it's defined as terrorism?
If you didn't purchase terrorism insurance, you don't get paid.
The government,
Government.
we're sure of that, the government does that. Go ahead,
And the
Andy.
umbrella
Otherwise, I'm
license,
sorry,
yeah.
Andy, I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment, can I amend my own motion?
Well,
Yeah.
you can if
I
you
want to insert, provided it does not conflict with our Wells Fargo mortgage.
Please.
Okay. Do you accept that? No?
Yeah,
This is a decline provided that it is not in conflict.
Yes.
We opt out, provided that's not in conflict.
So the motion now reads.
He's gonna read it to us. I wrote, elect to not include terrorism in our property insurance.
Comma, provided it is not required by our mortgage lender.
Okay,
All
so
right.
that's the motion as it stands now. Now, wait, just let me make sure who's next. I got- So it's, I guess it stands, because
Right.
Andy spoke, go ahead.
Well, first I want to speak out against the motion. I think that, for $14,000, there's all sorts of like, what ifs, including, forgetting like, large, violent acts, but, somebody drives, down Broadway, spewing, radioactivity, all the way down to, from the top of Manhattan to the tip of Manhattan. And then, you've got a contaminated property, and you've got a lot of problems there, for instance. But I also wanted to just ask Dawn, what are your property disclaimers?
I'm not aware of any conversation of this nature. I can follow up with our insurance group and ask them what those buildings have been doing. Is it the norm that it's not included? Because it also could be who your underwriter is.
It's kind of like a personal thing. It doesn't mean whether or not, it doesn't matter who your underwriter is. A
So
decision.
it's not included. I'm saying whether it be included or not included. Some companies may include it or require, actually I can look a few up while you're talking. Chuck.
I know my last property opted out. It was an offer, and they did opt out of it.
But I have a question. What other insurance did we buy just recently? Which one was it that we just purchased that we opted out of terrorism? The general liability, right?
Right.
Now, what's the difference between the general liability and the property?
Well, property is covering bricks and mortar.
Okay, and the general liability is anyone hurt
It's
on the
covering
property?
dripping and falling kind of situation.
And if there's terrorism in that, I'm
Well,
sorry, Jason.
terrorism, an example that I can give, terrorism is that, a plane hits the building, and 5 people are killed, and their family, their estate sues you for not, having, necessary safety precautions, and it was an act of terror. Then the general liability carrier says, well, you didn't buy terrorism insurance for general liability, so we will not defend that suit.
Okay, so if we defeat this motion and we're buying terrorism insurance, we've got to take care of general liability too, even though we rejected it before. And what's the cost of the general liability, terrorism on general liability?
I recall it was about the same,
Same,
10 to
same thing?
13,000 at the time.
15 is our cost.
But that's a higher percentage in comparison to the cost, because it's
Yes.
that's $140,000 premium, right? But it doesn't matter. The point is, if we buy one, we should buy the other. I think, if I'm just saying, and I think you have to decide, so, yes.
You get insurance hoping you'll never have to use it, but I'd say it's unlikely you would ever have to use it. If you had to opt for one or the other, I would go for the property, because to have a terrorist attack that would involve what was just
The scenario described.
described, yeah, is not as likely as something happening to the building itself. In my opinion, you would know better than I, Richard.
Well, I just give you the opinions of, people that own property. I give them options and they make decisions. They say, yeah, but you're the insurance expert. I said, yeah, but I'm the insurance expert. Okay, then pay it, I'll tell you to pay it. I don't have you coming and suing me saying that, well, you advised us, not to take this insurance. It's really a gut reaction. You have people that own, $250 million of properties in Manhattan. And they say, I'm not gonna pay those goddamn insurance companies anyway, why should I? That's just, his personal feeling on that stuff.
I just want to address something Dawn just said, and I'm indifferent about this, but there is an issue. if there's a plane flying that has a device in it, and the military decides to shoot it down, and they shoot it down over us, that plane's gonna hit us. So that's as likely to hit us as somebody driving on the property and blowing the place up. It's the same equality. We don't know what can happen. And that's the only reason why I think you have to buy it in both places, because you can't know what can happen in this world. Any bizarre thing can happen. So, if you want, we can close debate and vote this up or down, and then we have to decide what we want to do after that. Does anybody wish to continue this discussion? No? Okay, let's vote. All in favor of the motion made by Andy Ackerman, the treasurer? Yes, Andy?
No, I'm voting.
Oh, well, you were voting way ahead of me.
I thought you just said.
Can you read the motion again?
Repeat the motion. Ed will do it.
Elect to not include terrorism in our property insurance, provided it is not required by our mortgage provider.
Okay, we're all set? All in favor of the motion? Say aye. All opposed?
I need, who said yes?
Alfred and Andy. I think everyone else said no. Okay, so we now, I guess we now own terrorism insurance in our general liability, in our, not our general liability, in our property. Now, what we should do is, someone should make a motion that we want terrorism in our general liability. So, is anyone ready to do that?
Well, can we find out what the premium is and?
Yes.
About
No
15.
resignation, see what Wells Fargo says.
Can we put on the agenda? for the
Yeah,
next
why don't
meeting?
we
We
table
don't have
it?
to do it now.
Let's
I can put it
find
on.
out what our Wells Fargo policy says, let's find out the exact
Okay.
premium. And I believe if I read this chart right now, we have a policy with the terrorism coverage in it, right?
In our property.
Right.
Okay.
And it's
So
gonna stay.
Maybe you could also just circulate to us a copy of that section of the policy
Sure.
that defines terrorism. And then let's talk about the liability.
Okay,
We
so
have those facts.
we can table this to the next board meeting, and then I'll provide the
So,
information.
would you put that in your management report, make a note that you're putting it in your management report for the next meeting? So that, you'll let us know, to be exact, we want to know what Wells Fargo says in our mortgage. We want to know how much terrorism costs in the general liability. We know that the premium right now is $140,250,000, right? $140,250. So that number, whatever that cost of the terrorism will be, we'll figure out from there, but they'll come back with that number. Is there anything else we should ask for, Doug? Those two things, right? That's the only two we need?
I'd just like to see what the property insurance policy says about
Terrorism.
definition of terrorism.
The definition of the policy.
Okay?
Don't you want to see what it says in the liability?
We don't have
Well,
it.
we don't have that policy, so I'm not sure how you would.
We
Well,
have
do it-
the,
I can include it if we're gonna vote on it next
We're
month.
paying for liability insurance, we must have a copy.
no, we have it. We don't have
The
terrorism.
definition of terrorism within
Yeah.
that.
That's what I'm saying. But if it's there, if he has it, he'll bring that up too. Yeah, he's gonna check the loan. He's gonna come back with the loan. Okay? All right. Anything else, Rich?
Yeah, just that form that has, a cord form that would have to be signed.
Am I signing?
And also the piece of paper where you have accepted terrorism for the property insurance, that's also there.
Today is the 23rd. That's this one. What else do I need to sign? My signature, I'm charging $1 for now, and every time I sign my name to a document in this place. I don't know, but I'm charging it. My hand is falling off from signing my name. All I know is, I walk in, you have to sign this. Oh, yeah, okay, good. Am I signing policy holder applicant
Yes.
signature? Okay. Today is the 23rd, 10, 23, 12. Anything else I need to sign?
There's one I want to ask Richard to discuss with you. There is the renewal for the D&O policy that's coming in January.
Yeah, see, you know, which, but,
Directors
is it offices?
Yes.
Oh, we don't have it though, it's not in here.
Coming in
Oh,
January.
okay.
Right. It's the next one to expire, it's coming in
Oh,
January.
it's on the umbrella. Okay, it's the one that says umbrella on it. I got you. Go ahead.
It's the next one after umbrella, right?
Okay.
Let me verify this with Richard too. Is that the current premium, Richard, or is that the renewal premium rate, do you know?
The current premium is $5,971.
And what's the renewal rate for the,
That we don't know, that's, you have to complete the application.
the application first, and then you'll be able to tell us?
And then we remarket that.
And as Russell already asked you, everybody every chairperson of every subcommittee and everybody else is covered under the policy.
Right.
What I'm asking Larry to
They don't name
sign,
everybody.
what I am asking Larry to sign is just the application then,
Right.
for this.
Right.
Where am I signing this? Authorized, okay. That's $4 right now. Go ahead, Richard. Is there anything we should know?
On the Dino,
Yeah.
well, we're going out to market again. Last year, we remarketed the crime insurance, and dropped that down about 40%.
But then this year we had to add on to crime, correct?
Right. The bank
Required
came
us to
back,
add on.
but actually it still was a net reduction of not of a nice size. The bank came back and wanted an additional million or something, or 6 million.
We have to add $6 million to whatever we
But
bought.
they wanted a crime limit of $6 million. And basically we said, we had a conversation with them, because I usually speak, Wells Fargo hires consultants, so I spoke to Wells Fargo and I spoke to consultants. And they wanted, a higher limit.
$6 million.
Right. I see. And I think between Riley, who's your attorney, we said, the controls that this organization has, and we've had for many, many years, and they would know if someone took $6 million.
Right.
I think they would know if someone took $50,000. So we basically said that, the limit, you're asking for the sky, and it's not necessary.
So they agreed?
They agreed to the lower number.
So it's staying at $4 million?
It's staying at 5 million.
At
They want
Oh,
And
six.
they wanted 6, we got it down to 5.
5. And the price will be $4,213?
The price on the crime is, there's crime of $4 million, and then there's an extra excess crime of another $1 million.
Which is $1,677.
Yes.
And it's 2 different companies.
Yes.
And that gets us to $5 million because,
Yes.
right, okay.
This is also what leads me to believe, which I'll verify, but it leads me to believe that the terrorism is not a requirement with Wells Fargo, because they have reviewed all of our policies in the past. And when they have found deficiencies, they came to us and asked us to increase.
But that was about property, I thought he was interested in liability because we didn't vote
No,
on
they,
it.
I'm saying that on all policies, Wells Fargo reviews all of our policies because it's their investment that they're trying to protect. So in the area of crime, they deemed it to be a deficiency. They didn't think it was up to the par they wanted. They asked us for additional insurance and we delivered on that. But I'll still verify.
I think the board would be interested in an explanation. When it says employee dishonesty, and we're insured for $5 million, how do you make a claim on that? How does that work? What has to happen? What's the dominoes that have to fall?
Well, it goes down, employee dishonesty, that could be as much as a maintenance person who, orders, paint for the building, and, he or she orders, extra paint and has a little painting company on the side. So it could be something as simple as that, or it could be where, monies to pay certain escrow accounts, check is written and it goes someplace else. And then when that deficiency is found, if you basically do have audited financial statements, you make a claim. And then you come up with a documentation that says that, we are deficient by X amount of dollars, and that claim is paid.
Okay.
So we have a $25,000 deductible in our base crime, so it
Right.
only makes it worthwhile to go after something that's
Like $30,000.
over $25,000.
Right. You have to go for $30,000. All right, we gotta get the crime up. Anything else, Richard? Oh, I'm sorry.
Can we ask a couple of things?
Sure, please, go ahead.
The, on page 6, under the general liability policy, there's a limit per occurrence. It says $1 million per each occurrence. And so, and then there's a general aggregate. I assume that's per year, right? The aggregate is per year.
Yes.
So, but yet we have this umbrella coverage referred to on page 8, which is 100 million.
Right.
So does that mean that the 1 million is not really an actual limit on our coverage?
It is, every occurrence that you might have will be $1 million occurrence. The general liability policy then goes to an aggregate of 2 million. So you could have 2 $1 million occurrences a year, or 4 or 500,000 occurrences, and then it stops at that aggregate of 2 million, and that's when the umbrella jumps in.
Okay, so does that, from the perspective of the result, somebody gets injured and makes a claim and successfully makes a claim, does that mean that the actual limits of our insurance is not $1 million per occurrence, but it's 100 million per occurrence?
100 million plus 1.
Plus 1.
The original 1 million.
Let's not let anybody know that.
Many people don't send out, I go here, which people say, don't send out that $100 million proof of insurance.
Right.
Send out.
Okay, and what is errors and omissions?
You have a policy that basically covers the use of defibrillator.
Yeah, right.
So
That's all this is about?
yes,
The incorrect use of a defibrillator?
right. You know, someone performs a good act and takes up a defibrillator and attempts to revive someone and they don't make it. That's when you get sued.
And we do have defibrillators in our buildings, you know that.
Right. But some general liability policies, so I'm looking at this a little bit more closely. I asked the current carrier, and I said, well, if a layperson uses a defibrillator and someone dies and we get sued, isn't that covered under the general liability policy? Because it's considered, you have like incidental malpractice insurance. And he says, well, you have to give me the details of the claim. I said, well, the claim didn't happen yet. Nobody died, so why do I have to spend $3,000 for, E&O insurance? So I'm going back to these people to try to get some sort of clarification.
Good.
That does seem a lot. And on the property insurance, in this chart that you gave us, each building has a figure. Is that supposed to be the replacement cost for the building?
Yes. We have a statement of values that actually, affiliated FM, who's quite expert, they came up with numbers. And then, of course, Wells Fargo, in the past 2 years, came up with numbers. And Wells Fargo, they always like to have bigger numbers because they want to protect their asset. But I think it was well agreed that these numbers would be adequate.
It was just interesting, one of them was.
Well, yours is less than 5. You think about it. Building 6 is less money than 5. And that's
Strange.
I don't know. How did they come up with these numbers? Because it's interesting, like building 1 is more than 2, but 3 is more than 1.
They try to determine, current replacement costs on current costs of bricks and mortar and, materials and labor. They actually go through like they were rebuilding these buildings again.
It's because of the stores.
Probably. Yeah.
And
There's
then
more square footage. It's probably square footage.
on page 2, what is building ordinance?
Building ordinance. Okay, building ordinance is that you have a building and you're coded, maybe from the 1960s, or the building codes. But then a particular building burns, a unit burns, the building ordinance, the current building code says, you can't use that kind of electrical or plumbing. You gotta use the new, up to grade, up to standard plumbing, and that's an extra cost. So the insurance company gives you added value in the event that you have to meet code.
Wow. Is insurance for that?
Yeah.
Wow.
We're in the wrong business, though.
What's demo ICOC?
That too is an additional value because you have a building and the insurance company says, okay, we will replace what's here, and then the city of New York comes in and says, no, we don't think this other part of the building is any good. You got to demo that. Demolition. So that demolition cost may have been, in addition, it is in addition to the original building replacement cost, or what might be considered the claim that has to be paid by insurance. The insurance company says, okay, this area here is $1 million in damage, and we have to definitely pay you $1 million. Okay, oh, this other portion here, you gotta demo that, and so, the
And you don't
demolition.
have the demo coverage, you don't.
They don't, no, they're only paying for actual damage to the building.
Well,
The city came in and said, no, we got a demo responsibility. So that's an additional demo cost, and then possibly also a building ordinance cost as well. So there's added value that we put into the policy.
Fabulous.
okay.
Anything else, Doug?
You don't learn this stuff until you have a claim.
We don't want to have a claim, but
That's an
anyway,
expensive education.
is there anything else we should look at? That you want to call our attention to, Richard? Or have we taken care of all the really
I
big
mean,
things?
the stuff that really, I have to say, the claim as bad as it was, once it started going, I think the biggest problem is that you guys have to deal with the individual contractors and of course, all the unit owners, it's their, they're private residents, they want things done in a certain way. So, starting the claim, I thought was pretty much, as bad as it was probably the easiest part. It's the part that you gotta do right now, which is, that we're still working on.
Got it. Are we good then? We okay? Everybody satisfied? Richard?
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. This is an education. And I always love being educated, no matter what the cost. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Should I just take those signed for?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got everything done. Ready? Okay. If we're ready, Russell's gonna begin the management report. Everybody okay? Okay.
When am I gonna be a real person?
Well, you're trying to keep you warm here.
I won't come.
No, we want to.
And
Okay.
everybody else, cheesy.
We're all set. We're starting with open session STAR tax credit.
The STAR tax credit, let me frame this by explaining what the STAR tax credit is. It is a credit by New York State to, state credit, STAR State. Okay, I could be wrong.
No,
I
it
believe
is
it's
a state credit.
It's a state credit.
It is.
To households under certain conditions who apply by March 30th of every year. What they do is, what we do as a co-op, since we pay the one property tax in a co-op, the co-op itself gets the full credit for everybody. We then get a list and distribute the credit back to the shareholders who thus apply for the credit. What happened this year was the rebate was capped by 2%. However, the state did not cap the credit. So we received the monies back, we credited everybody back what we were supposed to credit everyone. We then later found out and received from the state that the cap was not adhered to. So they're now requesting a certain amount of monies back. Approximately, this affects approximately 596 units who receive this credit. So I have a recommended motion for the board. Move that the board absorb the cost of the New York City's Department of Finance error of not implementing the required 2% STAR cap and not burden the 596 Morningside shareholders with the additional expense.
Is there a second?
Someone needs to move that.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're moving it. Is there a second? John. Okay, so Yvonne and John. Now, may I ask one question before we begin discussion from Russell? If that's okay with everybody? Russell, is that the only money that's rebated in the month of April? Is STAR one of?
It's one of others. I think there's a couple other credits that occur in that line.
When do you do the co-op in June? You don't do it at the same time?
We do it all in April.
I think it's all comes.
So it's the co-op abatement, and
Veterans,
veterans,
STAR,
seniors.
Streets.
Co-op abatement is not big, isn't it?
I don't know the relations, percentage relations compared to the other credits, to be honest with you.
But there's several, in other words, in April, this is not the only rebate.
Correct.
There's several different ones, and people get different ones depending on who they are, some get all, depends, okay?
And if somebody has their bill, it's line item on their maintenance statement.
If we have the same as Terry,
I want
we're
to
covered.
say something because I just went through this and I don't know the answer to this.
And you're gonna ask it anyway?
My initial reaction would be, oh, it's not worth the hassle, just absorb it. But what I'm not sure about is legally, all shareholders have to be treated equally. Now, some people qualify for STAR and some people don't, and so it's a pass-through, and I don't know, you probably have to run this by council. Is it can the corporation absorb it, or then is there a differentiation in the treatment of shareholders? Because you're in essence letting people keep something that the corporation's paying for. And you may have talked to.
It came across to us
Okay.
through our Cooper Square in-house legal counsel, Ben Kirschenbaum.
Right.
And basically, he framed this in a way where it was up to the board to make a decision on how to handle the funding. Because of the board or the corporation pays it all at once for everyone, or receives the credit all at once, it's up to the board to decide how they want to handle this particular credit, this error of the cap.
And
So, I'm getting educated about this. I would like in the future, so the question of who qualifies, there's the internet here, thanks to our router. If you have an income of less than $500,000, you're eligible. So I think that's probably most of us. So.
And it has to be a primary residence. Right.
Which they have to be here.
You cannot own here without this being your primary residence, that's my understanding. So my point was, there are people on this list, I'm curious, there are people on this list, like for instance, the woman who is no longer alive, from whose estate we bought our apartment. Are we getting her credit? I don't understand, because there's money coming into this place for 10C in Building 6. Where does that money go?
Admittedly, I don't know the answer to that right now.
It's not money coming in, it's money going.
Well, she
This
receives
comes
the
Right.
credit.
Right.
if it comes back, it should be
I'm talking
going,
about the credits, not
Right.
the.
From what I
credit
did, what I did research on it is that once, obviously if somebody new owns the apartment, they should reapply. But for any current owners, if you applied once, that's all you need to do for the time you own your shares here.
What usually happens, if you buy from someone who qualified for STAR, and for that matter, even if you bought from someone who was a veteran, it takes a year for the city to catch up. It's a pretty long lead time, like you have to own by February, you have to apply by February 1st to qualify for the next year. So it is possible that someone who didn't enroll on their own does get it in any given year. And then the next year, if they don't sign up, they don't.
Yes,
It-
I
it-
got
Well,
Wait,
this is
wait,
3
wait.
years since I bought it. We
Right.
bought
And
it.
you've never enrolled?
No, but someone else's name is in my apartment, and I've never even known about that I was eligible until now. And now I find
Yeah, I
there's
think-
money I can get from the state, and so I think as treasurer, somehow we should have some policy that every year we tell people who are new here that, yeah, there's money the state is giving out, you might want some of that money.
I also suggest that at closing, you have the application at the closing so that people are handed that and they can sign up right then and there.
all right,
Very
so
good idea.
can we sort of do things, I think, that just came out. Number one, for the closing, we're gonna have that available to everyone who closes here. And number two, the issue of, like,
Where's the money from?
why is this person still listed on that apartment if Andy's here 3 years? How could money be going, money can't be going back to him.
Well, because he never applied, he
No,
never.
but if someone listed,
I
if
can
he
answer
was
that
listed.
also to most likely. It used to be that managing agents were responsible for filling out the RPT upon any closing, so that the city would have the
I don't
record
know
that
what
transfer,
RPT is.
real property transfer form. It's my understanding that now, it's really up to the buyer's attorney to have that submitted. So, there could have been that information may not have ever been transmitted to the city, and so the city records are not updated.
Oh, I'm sure that, I believe the city records are not updated, I'm just wondering where the credit is going.
Where's
It's coming
Miss
to-
Jones'
Yes,
$15?
where is Miss Jones' money? That's what I
But
want.
here's the thing, If Andy, I'm using Andy as an
It goes to
example.
the account.
Dawn, based on what you're
It's
saying,
going to the co-op, and the co-op is just banking that.
Right.
well,
No, it's going to that account.
Did it show up on your statement? Or you're not sure?
I'll look it up right now.
Look at your statement.
I don't know.
You bought from
I do
this,
not know.
this is your
I
apartment.
get a big, you know, once a
Okay.
year we get a smaller bill, I don't
It
take
says
that.
Star.
Right, okay.
It says Star.
So it's probably,
all right, 1 second, just before you do it. If this is not correct, in the case of Andy, this could be anybody, but in the case of Andy,
it's not.
if Andy puts in the form for Star, then that will terminate the other person, and then he's the guy who gets the credit, am I correct?
Correct,
Just putting in the form will rectify the problem.
yes. That's what would be the trigger to update the city
It
records.
should be, but if that RPT was never submitted, I'm not sure if then there's some inconsistent information. I don't know. Actually, yes, for the Star, you should put in the form, and then what we should do is we update the Department of Finance letter that's here every year. Every year we get them around, I think, November, December, and you have a very small window in which to make any changes. Like, some people may not get the co-op abatement because their social security number is either wrong or not on record with the city. And so what we can do is write it in, and then they update their record. So you used to be able to do it retroactively.
So it sounds like just like the right time frame now that we're even discussing this issue, that if in November, December timeframe, we receive the full listing from the city to verify, we'll be able to run that against our current rent roll and identify inconsistencies such as.
This would be
Like
$50.
$50.
This is not
Just one,
$15.
everybody's on, you just wanna say one thing?
How much for one?
Hold on, everybody, 1 second. I'd like, Russell, if you would make another memo for maybe the end of this week, beginning of next week, to all shareholders, reminding them that they should fill out the Star form, and if they need one, they can get it from the office, is that okay?
That's fine. I'll actually even
All right.
put some in the racks in the lobbies, the application for people
All
to
right,
pick up.
okay, now we go around the
The
room.
deadlines for
Andy, we had you. Doug, I think you're next.
Yeah, I did read this today, though. I believe the deadlines are March of the calendar year. So, and anyone who applies now won't, and who never had the credit, if you apply now and you never had the credit, you're not gonna see it in 2014.
I would suggest in that case, we wait, because I think it's gonna be more confusing to people. If they do it now, they're gonna think come
So-
June, they're gonna get it.
So
and they
when
won't.
should we, what's the date you think we should put these
Probably
things
towards
up?
the end of this year.
Or even January. if we
All right,
get
so
it
for
here.
Jan, let's agree, January, you'll put up and now, you don't have to do it now,
That's
so
fine.
station hand. Okay,
And
Doug,
your 10C, you got the Star, you got the co-op abatement back.
All I want to know
Yeah.
is where'd the money go, and I got the money.
You got the
Yeah,
money.
That's good.
And you're the treasurer.
This is probably.
that's so nasty. All right,
He wasn't the treasurer.
you didn't know that, now you know.
Treasurer.
All right, Doug, you're up.
You got a
Where
lot
the
of money.
money go, I got the money. I'm just gonna live as your.
Go ahead, Doug, it's yours.
Let me just ask Russell a couple things.
Yes, sir.
To the extent that I understand this, I understand there was a city made an error. It's not the shareholders' fault, but theoretically, these 596 shareholders owe an adjustment back to the city or through us or something.
Back to the co-op. Yes.
So I realize that this would be an unpleasant surprise to the people who got the credit and now part of it's being taken back, but I feel a little funny about passing on the cost to to other people who didn't get the adjustment in the first place. So I would just ask a couple of things, like one is, is this too difficult to actually attribute to the accounts of the people that it really applies to?
No, it would not be difficult at all.
And secondly, is it possible for us to just take these figures and make an adjustment to next April's
Credit.
abatements and so on?
I wouldn't want to do that, mostly because that if we consider what this is a credit for this fiscal year.
It is.
By bumping it to next year, I think it could cause problems with our audit and our numbers.
John?
I just want to say, in my closing, which was 2007, it was clearly addressed. Because I closed in March, and I had to refund the money to the person I was borrowing because the credit was going to be his. So it's a part of our closings.
Are you talking about Star or the co-op abatement?
I thought
Yeah.
both of those,
Yeah.
actually.
It could have been, and I'm impressed because I would say 90% of the attorneys who close don't even think about it. Because you'll have people who will buy from a sponsor and a sponsor doesn't qualify, and then they get a liability assessed for it, so they get assessed, they don't get the credit, then they complain to us, and if you bought from a sponsor, you don't get it. Takes you a whole nother year to qualify, so you had a good lawyer. Or your seller actually had a good lawyer.
It was a seller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maitri?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was just, my sense is that we should, not to get into it, I think if we can absorb the cost, because I think it's just more complicated to try and kind of give it back. And I know next year when you do the.
It wasn't complicated.
Well,
The technical aspect of billing everyone back,
Yeah.
charging everyone what they
Yeah.
received, the excess
Yeah.
credit, is not difficult.
if
So
we
the
do it
technic-
this year, but next year you think that it might.
Correct.
Okay, so if this year we just do it, because I know there's that figure that you can multiply by, you can like that's on the tax part of it, right?
Yes.
You're not gonna tax that.
Yes.
And then a separate question, is this what we're in danger of losing? Is this what the star, was the star what we would actually?
No, it's called abatement. The call of abatement is what the
Okay,
state took
that's
away
what-
from us, right? The city took away? The
Is
call of
it gone, or
abatement?
is that for
It's
next time?
still, it's in a weird limbo.
Right, that's the number we're talking about.
Is the co-op payment, right? This
Right.
one's the star.
Wait, she?
Yeah, I just want to say that, when we bought this place, I think the sales, office always remind us, like John just said, they told us, you should apply for the STAR besides the co-op abatement, because that's like co-op thing they do. They say, okay, you need to go get a form, or even, I remember they even gave us a form, so we just sent it. Yeah, I think our sales office should keep doing this.
Right, we're gonna do it.
Yeah, and then for the time, like you said, they say most of the time is dated March 1st each year, but they still recommend people to go to check each date, like each year, whether the date, application deadline is in postmark or received by, so that's two things different.
Right.
But they say it's about.
Right, but if you
March.
apply at the beginning of next year, you won't get it in that year. You'll get it in
Right.
2014,
Can we
but you have to apply by March
Can
1st.
we frame the discussion?
Well, yeah, we're almost finished.
Yeah, so
John?
just let people know that.
Andy?
I just want to inform those in the audience who don't know what numbers we're talking about. We're talking about $15 to $30 total per apartment. That's what we're talking about.
Okay? Have we exhausted the discussion?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to move to a vote. The motion is move that the board absorb the cost of New York City's Department of Finance error of not implementing the required 2% star cap and not burden 596 MSC shareholders with the additional expense. All in favor, raise your hands.
I need the names.
All right? It's the donor, Fiscarello,
Martin Kurtz,
Red.
YMCA.
Maitri, Wallenstein. All opposed? It's Carter, Chi, Simmons, Ackerman. I think it's carried, correct?
Yes,
It's carried.
5 to
Okay.
4.
Okay, we can move forward now.
Okay, the next item on my agenda for,
Excuse me, there are 10 people with us,
Yes, there are only 10.
I think you just get out there.
but that adds up to 9.
How could that be? I counted,
You missed out.
no, Alvin
Doug.
voted yes.
No,
Doug voted no,
Doug voted no.
Andy voted no, she voted no, John voted no, that's 4.
Yes.
And everyone else voted
Okay,
yes.
then it's 6, because you took that vote first, and only got 5.
Maybe someone did, right? Sorry.
We're right though, right?
Yes,
Oh, okay,
yes,
good, good,
sorry.
okay. Thought I forgot how I was naming people. All right, it's your turn, Russell.
Ackerman.
I'm pleased to announce that we are now in compliance for our local law 75 for the installation of our carbon monoxide detectors in all buildings. Next item on my agenda is local law 51. This issue came to myself very early when we first started here at Morningside. Local law 51 requires anyone who operates a public garage to set aside a certain amount of spaces for bicycles. This is not for resident parking, this is actually bicycles for transient bike riders who would ride their bikes and would want to park their bikes like you would your car in a garage. The issue with this was we are tight with our parking spaces, number one, and we want to find a solution for Morningside not to use up, take up valuable parking spaces where we're making money on it as an income. What we did do in the front of the garage, and anyone who's familiar with it, on the right side when you walk in, is a caged area where Morningside used to store equipment for our grounds, various pieces of equipment. We have cleaned this area out. We are relocating all the equipment that was in this space, and we're gonna make this space the bicycle parking for monthly bicycle residents. It's a wonderful solution, I think. Now we don't lose any parking spaces.
Don't you mean daily parking, resident? Daily parking bikes? It's the first of
Both.
month, transient, both?
It's, right, parking of the bicycles would be just like vehicles. You could come in and park it on an hourly or daily or a monthly basis. Just like, it's a different rate than cars. So, to me, that was a very good accomplishment. We have to find a space, and we're gonna have this finished, I believe, by the end of next month.
I have a question.
Yes.
If we're allowing shareholders to park in the monthly spot, and we have 6 rooms, that spot's not gonna be less than what we're charging now for monthly, right?
It'll actually be more expensive.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Actually, pretty much more expensive. Why? Because it's working out of the rate for a parking garage, not from the mentality of this as being an independent parking garage.
It's the 6.
It's the city requirement. So
It's not
we're
for
gonna,
resident bikes.
correct, it's meant for outside people, transient parkers.
Okay. So in other words, a transient is the one who's gonna park there monthly.
Yes.
But
Or
it
daily
could
or hourly.
be, it could be a shareholder. if
A
they
shareholder may
pays-
want to park there, but it'll be at a much higher rate than what they're
The bike
paying
garage.
Yeah,
in the
you
bike
know what
storage.
it's gonna be?
Off the top of my head, I've actually talked to 2 or 3 different garages. It was around $90 to $100 a month.
Wow.
I used to
So
do that.
it'll
But
be
I mean,
very
you
expensive
know,
compared
it
to
could
what.
just stay empty, it's just we have to comply with obligations.
Correct.
It's empty.
And every one of the
Yeah.
garages I talked to, it
Yeah.
was completely empty. They did not have anyone utilizing the space. However, they had to have the space available.
Chief, yes, please go ahead.
I just have a question. I know some shareholders, I think, earlier in the year, and then they complained about, especially the indoor parking space.
The 6, are you talking
Yeah,
about the
the-
6 indoor bikes? Or are you talking about parking?
No, the regular parking, car parking
Okay,
space, but
okay.
some shareholders put their bikes there.
Behind the
And,
car?
Yeah, behind, against the wall.
They can't
And
do that.
in their parking space. But other shareholders saying that, oh, I have like a bike garage charge here in the one of the buildings, you know, the bike storage room.
Yes.
So I pay $60, that the shareholder told me, saying, that, how about the other people who put their bikes in the garage, they pay nothing, so that's
Well,
not fair.
according to the rules of the garage, you are not allowed to have anything in the parking space except your car. So, since you brought that to the attention of management,
Yeah.
management will now go through the garage with a
Right,
fine
there are
tooth comb
still
and will
people
find
there.
There was a
every
few
single
we
person.
Yeah, there are.
There was
There
a
are
few we
still
did catch and
people.
have them removed, so.
Yeah, they're still in the Broadway level garage, you go there, you will see them.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Andy,
If we're gonna talk about this, so this is something that came up in the amenities committee, and there are not, there's a line to get your bicycle parked inside in these basements, so I think it's a mistake to make it harder to park your bike inside, and I would vote, I mean, we're not voting, we're not having a motion, but I would push the other way, which is to let anyone who's already paying for a parking spot to put a bicycle in front of their car. I know we're not, it's just a general point of discussion.
all I'm saying is, no.
Something, yeah, we can charge.
Oh, you wanna charge for it, because
Yeah.
right now, the
Let's
rule
charge
is you
for it.
can't use anything except the car in that
I
spot.
understand.
If you're saying you wanna, if someone wants to park a bike there,
you
and we wanna charge a
the
fee
same
for
thing.
it, I'll entertain a motion right now. What do we think it's
Charge
worth?
the same thing as people who run the bike storage here, right? And then it's a year, $60.
It's $120 in this fund in January.
Yeah, the new one.
Can we let the amenities committee is talking about this, we're thinking about bike parking, this is one of the issues we're gonna look into, is this even legal, are we allowed to?
Right, yeah.
So let the amenities committee
Right,
handle this.
yeah.
Okay, so we'll wait until next month. Thank you, Andy, I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
that's a good.
Dan?
thing.
Russell, also just on the demand issue, I mean, why do we have to charge $100 a month for this? I mean, do we set our own fee, or are we supposed to?
Well, we do have to, we have to set our own fee, but we do have to send it to the DCEA, Department of Consumer Affairs, for their review as well.
Why wouldn't they want, I mean, if we said $10 a month, I mean, probably get more residents parking and not a whole lot of non-residents taking advice.
Well, ultimately, the other idea is to, if we opened it to resident parking for $10 a month, I guarantee you it will be filled up tomorrow. And then we will no longer be in compliance for anyone who happened to ride in on a bike and want to park their bike there.
And then we'd have to take away parking spaces to make bikes.
To accommodate
parking.
additional parking.
And the idea is to avoid that issue.
Right.
What if we divide it up and have some that are open to residents and then some that are?
You can't know, because based on the way Bloomberg and his Department of Traffic Commissioner works, the DOT, their plan is to have thousands of bikes being parkable all over the city. That's why they're putting this rule in. So if that really comes to fruition, and I believe Andy thinks that it will happen, because he's a bike person, if that happens, having residents there will only cause us a bigger problem, because we'll have to take away parking spots. And I don't think we really want to do that, because that's where the real money is, in the parking spots.
So we're not deciding on prices
No,
now, right? So
no.
we can move on.
Okay? All right.
If I recall too, to actually accommodate the amount of bikes we would need, we would lose, it was 9 parking spaces.
That's a lot of money.
So we avoided losing the 9, so I don't want to do something to now overcrowd the area and have to turn around and take back those
Okay.
spaces.
We're up to our, the
Irene
next-
update?
Yes, please.
Of the original 129 total apartments that were reported damaged during Irene, we are currently down to the last 30 apartments. Most of these apartments are on hold as per the resident. We have 3 currently scheduled, and I only have 2 reimbursement requests pending that I expect to be paid by the end of this week, beginning of next week. Inspection and physical maintenance. I want to discuss this issue that we recently went through with the temporary, we're finally offline with the temporary boilers. The chimney is now in full effect and is operating with our current boiler plant. We did run into difficulties with getting our current boiler plant up and running and transferring from the temporary boilers. Most of the issues were minor, however, think of it where this is a mechanical equipment that hasn't ran in over a year. So we're at a point now where we have 3 of our 4 boilers completely working, providing heat and hot water as necessary.
It's an amazing moment. Dan?
Yeah, I written to you about the complaints of the roar.
Correct. We are looking into that issue. I was talking to Tommy. These are the vent. It's not the boiler noise. It's the vent fans for the boiler room. These were always in operation. I think what happened was, in the last year when we went to the temporary boilers have their own noise level, but were further away from the building. The residents in that general area hasn't heard that noise in over a year.
It's new to them.
It seems new to them, but these fans have always been there. They always work in conjunction with the boiler. Yeah, it's meant to exhaust the boiler room itself. I think what made it more noticeable for some residents is that it was off for the last year.
And if you don't run the fans, you don't run the boilers. That's as simple as that. So I think heat and hot water is kind of important.
No, obviously, but if there's a...
Nonetheless, we were gonna look at some options if we can do something to quiet or dampen the motors or the sound. So we're looking at
I mean, is it not possible there's corrosion on the motors in the year they were off and they're noisier than they used to be?
No, we actually had them just serviced too. They were just serviced.
So, okay. Well, it's being looked into though. They're looking for a way to see if we can make it even quieter. Sure, oh gee, I'm sorry.
Just a quick
And Doug? Okay.
suggestion that since we are talking about the boilers, and then I know that the management will, and maybe you already have, those like maintenance schedule, like each year we have boiler maintenance. So if you have a schedule, I know maybe Tom keep that.
Yes.
So every year, like sometimes it's in the summer, sometimes it's in the winter, like also water tank, something.
That's correct.
So then we do the maintenance. Therefore, we don't have all those breakdowns.
Right.
to prevent-
This year, we didn't have a choice to do it as late as we did because we were running the temporary boilers and the chimney wasn't ready.
Right.
So, you're right, for us to do this would have been something that we would have probably started in September timeframe.
Right.
To have everything up, the tune-ups performed and have everything up and running by
Right.
September.
If you have a list, then you will check.
Absolutely.
There's no question, Tom has that, there was no question it exists. The problem was the startup date. You couldn't turn on the boilers until the date, that Monday, this past Monday, it was on. That's what happened.
I want to update everyone where we are with the fines and violations of the House rules. I've been working with Mr. Jerry Wolbert, the chair of the House Rules Committee, on a recommendation for the board. I hope to have this for the board by next meeting. Our capital projects, as earlier announced in conjunction with the boilers, the chimney replacement project is in its final stages. It's operational. There are still some finalization work that needs to be performed, but for all intents and purposes, the new chimney is up and it's running. Our local law, I have a couple recommended motions for the board for local law roof and balcony repairs. The first one is the recommended motion, move that the board of directors approve the 3 Brent proposals to repair the roof depressions on the roofs of 100 LaSalle, 90 LaSalle, and 549 West 123rd Street at a total cost of $22,695.
So that you're aware, first of all, is there a maker of the motion? Anyone to make the motion? Yes, Yvonne, and seconded, Alfred. Everyone should know, that's only 3 buildings. We still have to get the price for 3 more buildings. Because this is called the ponding effect on the roof. No, this ponding effect occurs because when they strip the roof, you're down to the concrete, and then you find that you have this valley in different places, and no building is the same. Every building has a different pond. Now, the reason why no one sees that before, under the old system, which we're not under now, because we're using the newest type of roofing, but in the old system, when you use the asphalt and gravel fill, any depression, you just throw the gravel in, put the tar in, you level it off, and you got a level roof. But now, because we're using green roof, everything has to be filled in before the roof goes on. So this work was done prior to this motion coming to us because they couldn't have proceeded on the roofs without filling those roofs, those spots already. So it has occurred. This is the price now for those 3. Alfred.
And just mention that the price was negotiated down, it had been closer to $27,000.
Correct. The original price was $26,700. The price was reduced 15%, or reduced by $4,005.
Doug, just one thing. Did I forget to call on you before, Doug, or are we okay?
Yeah, well, we can come back to it. It wasn't about this piece. So.
Okay. Dan, I think you're next.
So the work's been done, the roofs are done. Right?
Well, they're in the process of putting all the layers on, but before they put the layers on, they did the fill.
We did the fill.
And now they've been putting the layers on, and then they came to us to be
So
paid.
why didn't Bren, when they originally inspected these roofs and looked at what it would take, and put in their bid for these roofs, say like, this is what it's going to cost? I mean, this is as you said, it's a usual thing for roofs to have.
You cannot see the depression until you've cleared the roof.
It was an unseen condition due to underneath the gravel.
Because you can't tell where the gravel
From
is
the
filled and where the
level,
gravel is done.
this is their condition.
There's no way to know until you do it. Now we know. Now we have perfect maps.
Now-
We know where all our depressions are. The next time we do roofs, nobody has to do a laser or anything. We know where they are.
And to also clarify why we're doing this after the fact, is that Bren wanted to charge us from day one, when they actually did do the work. Cutso George is the one who didn't agree to paying the charges. They wanted to talk to the manufacturer and look into other conditions and other projects they've had, whether it was something the corporation would absorb or if it was an expense that the contractor would absorb. They ended up making the determination that it was something that Morningside should absorb.
Okay? Are we good on this? Chief, go ahead.
Yeah. Just I think that this is one question also, paired with, also linked to the chimney project. I just want to know that after the entire project is finished, we need to know the life of the new thing, like chimney. Is that 25 years?
I think
And
so,
then what's the
23.
warranty from international chimney? How many years? If we have a problem, we go back, issue charges. That's one, and then also for the roof should be the same thing.
Well-
And then, so this is just part of the roof replacement, right? That's extra cost.
It's the lowest, it's the bottom, it's the
Yeah.
concrete level.
Right. And then that means the 3 building roofs, they're still working on it. They haven't finished.
They haven't built this for it.
Yeah.
They will.
So this should be a capital expenses.
As a capital expense.
Right.
Right,
I'm
so-
sorry.
And
It's in my capital expense section.
I agree, of course, we pay this amount, but I think we should also have that all the building roofs after completion, the board should have get a report to say, like, to see the life of this roof, how long it will last at least, and then what's the warranty from the contractor.
I'm 100% certain that this will be part of your closeout documents for
Right, yeah,
the
I
roof
know.
and the facade work, 100%. I do have to find out what the warranty on the chimney aspect is.
Right,
That I
yeah,
can find out.
I'd like to-
Doug?
Yeah, this stuff about the roof depression, this is not a change order, right?
They're billing it, they're asking for this on a separate invoicing, not trying to include it in a change order, but
It's
all
not
intents and
any time.
purposes,
No extra days.
for all intents and
Okay, well, that was
purposes,
my next question.
it's
already
considered a
done.
change.
There's
Yes.
not any extra days.
No,
no,
and
there's no extra days
So
added.
it's not a change order in the sense of,
Extra
that usually
days.
means future
No.
work to be done.
But it is
Correct.
a change order, and that's an extra cost.
Uh-huh.
Correct.
I see.
It's an unforeseen cost.
There was some provision for that in the original contract anyway, right? There's something about
Yeah.
some,
There's always provisions when in a construction project for unseen or unknown conditions, or there's always provision in the contract for that.
all right. But anyway, per your summary of your summary at the end, there are no additional days for that.
No.
For this, no.
Can we vote on this? Is this okay? Are we ready to vote? All right, all in favor of this expense, capital expense? Anybody? Okay, 9 to, and abstain or against? You're against? Oh, okay.
Is it no?
She's a no? Okay. I just want to bring something to your attention for the local law 11 meeting tomorrow before you go on. We're coming to the flip in time. November flip. We're going to Eastern Daylight Time. Remember, we've granted them the right to extended hours, weekdays and Saturdays. I think it's coming to the point, we have to have a discussion tomorrow about this coming to a close, because we have to tell the site safety guy that he's not gonna be working those extra, because he's the most expensive guy that we're paying here. That doesn't mean the weekend would be out, because I think the weekend, that would be Brent to tell us, I think they can still get the hours in, but the extended hours may have to come to an end at the end of, at least the last day of this month.
Yeah, the later part, not necessarily the earlier, start with 8. So it's still.
Eight will, well, on the flip over, I guess 8 will be daylight. If Brent thinks he can work at 8, that's fine, because they'll be putting the stuff on and everything else. But it's the end of the day, so they won't get the extended hour at the end.
Start earlier.
So you'll bring that up at the meeting tomorrow, okay?
Right.
Because that's a big thing, and with this way we can tell the site safety guy, you're only working an extra hour every day, and it's $90,000 less to us a year, okay? So, I'm exaggerating. Whatever it is, go ahead.
Okay, my next recommended motion is move that the Board of Directors approve 4 window sill replacements at drop W1 on Building 5 for a total of $1,795, a balcony drain replacement for a total of $3,450, and a small balcony roof replacement for a total cost of $9,249.60.
These are CapEx expenses, right?
Oh, yeah, adding 3 total days to the local law roof balcony project as a capital expense.
Okay?
We
Oh,
need a mover and a second.
Mover, please, Andy, a seconder, Alfred. Do we need to really discuss this? We've been through windowsills 100 times. You know what I mean? Balcony drains we've been through, and we've been through,
Yeah.
small balcony, but we've done all this stuff. Gee, do you wanna say
Yeah,
something?
I just have a suggestion to add, because the 4 window sills is 501, right, building 501? But the other 2 is building 4, so can you just add building 4 so that people know which one we're talking
Okay.
about? Yeah, the other 2 is the same one in
Building
building
4.
4.
Window sill
right?
For the drain replacement and the,
And
small
the
balcony
small
roof is in
balcony,
building
yeah,
4.
the
Building
last-
4,
Yeah,
okay.
the last 2.
building 4,
Building
okay,
4.
it's in the, we're putting the words in, building 4 right after the comma, building 4, a balcony drain replacement totaling, and et cetera, okay, is that
Yeah,
satisfactory?
so that- Yes.
Okay. All righty. I think that's your report, right?
Well, we gotta vote on that.
Oh, we gotta vote. That's a good thing. I thought we had done that. I was hoping we did, but okay. Do we need any further discussion?
I got
No?
some-
Yes? Okay, Dan.
Sorry. Well, I wanna talk about more about local law 11, because in terms of the schedule where we are now. We can do it adjourn this motion, which just does extend our project, or we can do it I'd like to do it, during Russell's.
Well, that's not on the motion though. Can we finish the motion and then, okay, we're ready to vote? All right, all in favor? It's 10, 2 abstentions? No, 1 abstention.
No.
Dan is an abstention.
I'm a no.
No, she's a yes.
I'm yes.
So it's not.
Dan's a-
Oh, 9 to 1, right, we don't have 11. Okay, I keep trying to get that 11 in there, but all right.
You're a no.
What do you want, well, if you want information, I can wait.
Here's information that I'm passing around right now. This is from the report that, what's his name? Who's our consultant?
G. Farrar.
Yeah, G. Farrar. The one that he did in July. This is a page from it. And if you'll look here at the end, it shows our schedule. And you look at the end, building 6, work completed and bridge down by mid-October. Building 1, September, and building 2, November, early November.
That's not the truth then.
Okay,
All
well,
right,
then.
so I can give you the 2 things I know.
Okay,
At the end of this month, actually next week, the best squad is coming here to we believe, that the work is done on building 1 and the bridging can come down. That's what I just spoke to York about today. He's gonna repeat it at the meeting tomorrow, but I'm telling you what I know today. Then building 2, the same thing will happen at the end of November. The best squad has to come, agree that work is done, and the bridging will come down.
is the work done in building 2 already?
At end of November.
It's not done yet.
No,
it's
end of
near-
November.
It's near completion.
It's near completion. They're right now, he said they're right on time for 1 and 2. So at the end of this month, which is next week, they're telling the city, they're asking them to come to look and say, okay, the work is done, we can take down the bridging. We don't know the answer to this
What
question.
about 6?
6 is not done. It's on a later schedule. It's not coming down in October. This has changed because I don't know why it's later, but it's not coming down at the same time as before building 2.
Why?
Because building 6 is staying up because that's why they refiled the bridging. The bridging that connects building 6 and building 1, you know how it goes around both buildings? But in between, there's a path coverage. The one that covers the path between the 2 buildings, that bridging has been moved to building 6 so that they can take down 3 sides on building 1. That's what's coming down if they give the okay.
Why not 6 also?
Because 6 is not ready to come down.
There was delays in
But it
development
says-
and balcony lines.
There was delays on balcony lines.
There's a delay
Delays in
on
development.
balcony lines in building 6.
Yes.
So when, so I guess my question is like, are we okay with this? I mean, we have this new schedule, we have a project manager that's, have we heard from him? I mean, is this all?
He's here regularly. I see him.
He's at every local law meeting.
And he's at every local law meeting.
And he
He's
does walk arounds.
He does, he's here. But the question is, if you want new time frame, or you want to know the time frame, I think we can get that
I don't know,
tomorrow.
look, we could get another time frame every time we have a meeting, get another time frame and pushes us out further out. I mean, that's the problem, we have all new time frames. The problem is we don't have any time frames.
As you noticed in building 3, there was a delay because, or, I'm sorry, building 4, there was a delay because people wouldn't let us into the apartments.
There's no, I mean, look, everyone's got excuses for why this is, not happening as quickly as we expected to. Now we have a schedule that that Gene Ferrara has said is a reasonable schedule.
From July.
From July.
So long ago.
Yeah, and so where are we now? And why are we blowing past yet another schedule?
You may recall there was a squad line and we got shut down for a couple of weeks there because they didn't
That's
have
not our,
things.
that's not our problem.
I know, but
And
you're
not only
asking
that-
what happened, well, there's something that
Not
happened.
only that, that's not our
It was
problem,
good.
they said it was not gonna affect the schedule at the time. That's what we were.
They did not add additional days to the schedule.
Okay, so we'll have an answer after tomorrow's meeting. We'll ask him this.
I have to say that, I think that, I don't know, I mean, I want to do a motion or something. We have a schedule that we're expecting, them to meet. I let them know that, that you and, that management's basically like making sure that we're doing everything that we're holding these guys to the fire. And-
We are.
and-
We are. But the problem,
But excuses about stop work orders and shut doors and stuff.
let's not throw this around about local 11, because the chimney wasn't completed until the end of October, and it took.
That's a
it
horrible
took-
mess, nightmare too. yeah, I know.
It's only got done because I explained to the contractor that we were really upset, really upset.
If you could use your magical power.
I can't. I can't magical power because this is beyond my control because of the amount of work that this co-op had to correct. It's just beyond my control. And we just have to go. The fact that you think that the time schedule is dead doesn't mean it is dead. Doesn't mean it can't be caught up somewhere depending on how they move forward. Doesn't mean that Building 6 can't come down a month later. We don't know that answer, but we will have answers for you tomorrow at Local Law 11. They're gonna ask that question, and then we'll all know it. We'll all be emailed. Am I correct, Russell?
I can do that.
Yes, Maitri.
And actually, I think we might have made this request in a previous meeting as well, was that if we can have kind of on a monthly basis, kind of on this, a standing agenda item is just like, just an Excel spreadsheet, each building, what the current status is, because I think it's hard for us to keep track, and it's, because people ask us all the time.
All right, it'll be done.
I think we should have that kind of understanding base, and that way, if there is a delay, we can say, if it was supposed to be July, it's now November, reason, and then, so that way it's just like an ongoing list.
No problem.
Otherwise, it's really hard to keep track.
Now, I want to comment on this section of Gene's report. This is also these were what Gene and actually myself thought were reasonably accomplished, can be reasonably accomplished by the timeframes on this memo here. However, remember, this is a departure from what Bren's actual schedule is. Bren's actual
Yes.
schedule went pushed out to 2014 for full completion. So these are what he felt was reasonably accomplished versus Bren's schedule is still
2014,
dated
right.
past this.
That timeline, right, I couldn't find that timeline, but that
Yeah.
timeline still had the early stuff in buildings 2, 1, and 6 down by the fall and the winter.
Correct. And although we're missing I agree, we're missing the September and October timeframe, obviously, we're missing those. But even at the last local law meeting and through my other discussions with Yurick, we are still on target for 1, 2, 3 by the end of this year, possibly 6 by the end of this year. 4 and 5, definitely not. It will roll into 2013.
Which will probably mean the project will end, if everything goes correctly, before 2014. Remember, 2014 is the contractual date, is a change order time.
Correct.
The real time is what Brent is trying to push forward.
But I think we need these few buildings.
Absolutely.
That we promised that we need first.
See, I could honestly answer some of these things where I could do that and give everyone an update from discussions and much like what Gene has done in his report, from our conversations and what the feel is for the project is at that time. But Brent will not put something like that in writing versus their
for us to
in
have,
concrete
yeah.
permanent schedule. You know what I mean? So I just want to everyone understand there is a departure between the two.
No, they put in their concrete schedule, I can't recall it right now, but it was around this time of year for 631 to come down in their concrete schedule. Even their like wildly, after the 60-day, and I believe it was after the 60-day change order too.
But we're in the time schedule, one and two are coming down. Number 6 may come down a little later. Sometimes these things are not, you can sit there and I can talk to these guys and they can really be a nasty guy. But you know something? This just doesn't work that way. This job is just beyond scaring the crap out of somebody. It really is. Okay? Management report's concluded?
Yes.
You got another motion. I do? I'm sorry. Didn't I just vote on top of page 5?
Yes.
We did 3 and open, there's something for close.
That's closed, I
Oh,
think.
that's closed. Excuse me.
Could I ask a couple of things about the management report before Russell goes? Russell, just looking at the stuff, the cuts that George Truman and Allen, well, actually, it's the minutes.
Yeah.
I guess of the local revenue. You understand this, we're in the process of putting on temporary roofs or filing applications for temporary roofs.
It's only 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean 4 and 5. I apologize. 4 and 5.
Everybody who doesn't have a permanent roof, we're trying to get a temporary one before December
Well,
1st.
the temporary, let me clarify that. The vapor barrier is the original first layer that goes on the roof. That's what they call temporary roofs. That was done way back when, sometime in the beginning of this year. The issue that we're talking about now is the insulation layer. Buildings 4 and 5 is what is missing the insulation layer. And that's what we need, a temporary insulation layer being put down on before winter officially hits.
And that applies to, the temporary roof insulation applies to which buildings?
4 and 5.
Only,
That's right.
okay.
The other 4 will be
All 4 will
insulated.
have the permanent insulation already installed by that point.
And one last question about the management report. Are we
One
gonna-
second, Doug. I just want to.
Yeah.
Are we okay? Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, are we gonna, I was gonna ask a couple things about your Irene update. Are we gonna?
Let's go back to Irene update. Let's go back.
Are we gonna be
No,
missing that
go
topic
ahead.
later?
No, go up to it.
Okay.
Certainly, no.
I just thought.
We're back on page 2.
Yeah, you recently sent out a letter, right, to kind of survey what happened to the Irene damaged apartments?
Correct, it was the 30 people who were still outstanding, according to my list. A letter went out to those 30 people asking their current status, or just to ensure that they were still awaiting for repairs.
And
And most of them, the reason I say that is most of them were, it's at the residents' request right now, we're not moving forward with any repairs. They're not ready, they don't wanna deal with it right now, kids in school, various issues.
okay, so that letter went out to the people who, according to our records, still had something undone.
Correct.
And how many people responded?
Approximately 5 total.
And what did they, and the response was, please do the work? Or I'm still waiting to have it done? I'm still delayed.
Some were, I don't have any damages, please remove me from the list. Then there
That
were,
was mine.
the 2 or 3 that said, they still wanna do the work, but not right now. One, I already had a previous conversation with that we were scheduling by the end of December, so they're still pending out there.
And we can't we can't make them do the work. There's no way for us to do that, because it's their apartment. And they're making the claim, it's our floors, our walls, we should be able to get in there, but if Dan says, I don't want it done now because I don't feel like moving my furniture,
Yeah, it's a huge.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, Dan, I'm just saying, if you have a reason and you don't wanna do it, yeah, but we'd like to get rid of it before next year, before the end of next year.
Is there a statute of limitations?
No, the money's in our
Yeah,
pocket.
there was, it was in August or something, there was something that.
No, all the money of the claim
Yeah.
is in escrow with Wells Fargo. It's a separate escrow account. We cannot touch that money until the work is done for each particular thing, and then we submit to them that here's what we paid, they give us that money so that we can pay the
There
bill.
was something about, the work had to be done by a certain time. Wasn't it?
No.
By
No,
the-
that was more, I think, a unit owner perception that was coming out saying, we have to do it before the year was out.
Okay.
I think with some unit owners who may have filed a claim with the individual insurance that was still pending, their insurance was telling them, look, you have a year to settle this with us.
Dan, we can't wait for the kids to go to college.
I mean, yeah, it's a huge, I'm with you now, but
I was joking.
maybe,
Okay?
Do we know how many people, you said in this report here, there are 2 reimbursement requests pending,
Yes,
pending information from the resident.
correct.
Do we know how many people got paid reimbursement?
I would have to research the exact number, but I estimated between 7 to 10 approximately, who came for some sort of reimbursement, whether it was their deductible or,
We've got a lot of deductibles, I know that.
Yeah.
It's not those checks.
Yes, Chief.
Yeah, we didn't discuss this, and then I don't have this question. Now, when you're talking about some people delaying, and then do we have a record for all those people who don't want to do it now? How much damage they had, and then maybe after year 2, they come here, they say, oh, I have a bigger damage.
no, we have the exact record.
Sorry.
Everything's
And
been
I-
researched, Chief. Everything's been written down for each department
Good.
at the
As long as
survey,
we have a
at the
record.
beginning. Remember it was
We have 2
examined?
surveys.
Yeah.
We have our survey done by our building staff, and then we also have the adjusters survey
Oh, good.
from the insurance
And then
carriers.
the amount, whatever.
Right, and the estimated amounts for
Right.
repairs, yes.
And remember, that we still have the right, if we go into an apartment and we find more damage than what was revealed, because like you
Yeah,
might go in and
I
see
agree.
it, we have a right to go back to the insurance and make a further claim. That's still open too.
Right.
There's no closure to that.
There must be some limit on that, though.
I'm sure on that, because that's me going back and asking for more funds, so at some point the
Maybe
insurance
that's
is
what
gonna say, I
Mike was
can't.
referring to. There's got to be some limit on when you can put in additional claims.
But also put it in perspective too, of the 30 that are totally still outstanding, there's only 16 that's gonna require an outside contractor.
The flooring, you see
There's
that?
9 of them that are plaster paint repairs, which we're doing in-house anyway. That we could do 5 years from now, we could do that whenever. So there's only 16 that really require an outside contractor at this point.
Okay, Doug?
Yep.
Dan,
I have another question on the roof, since you brought up temporary roofs.
we're back to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright. I know when we did this, I mean, obviously people on the 21st floor, they're hot, they're cold when we did it, and it cost a ton of money. And then it costs a lot of money, it costs like $10,000 to like bring them up, and like $10,000 to bring them down or something like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
So, was that a dumb thing to do, and should we have just like cranked up the heat and the AC in their apartments, throughout this period?
When you crank up the heat in the apartments, crank up the heat.
I mean, electric heaters and everything else, I mean, just saying, like, put in, like, give them all they need in terms of, like, temporary stuff, because, I mean, that's an insane, I mean, I think that was a mistake.
Well, if we give them heaters, and we're gonna have to refund them money on their electric bill for the
Yeah.
difference between what they paid last year
Right,
and
so
what they
what's
paid
the
this
cost
year.
benefit versus $20,000 and,
Of-
up and down,
of-
of.
The temporary.
You're talking about the temporary,
Yeah.
because in the long run, the temporary will serve us better than giving them the heaters and running up their electric costs, or trying to heat their apartments and blasting away.
We know
I
this.
mean, I haven't experienced the true effect of a winter. I came here in February, so the tail end of winter. So I don't know the real effects of winter. But I can tell you from the summer months that when we did have to remove the temporary installation due to the stop work order that came down, some of these apartments had 2 or 3 air conditioners running and still was not coming to a comfortable temperature. So I could only assume that in the winter, it'll be the same extreme on the other
It's the
side.
same thing. A temporary heater cannot heat the way the radiator, the steam heat can heat going across your room in front of the windows. It just doesn't work. You can get like local warmth, you put the heat, like you sit in the chair, you put the heater in front of you, you're gonna feel warm. But if you get up, your whole back is cold, and that's like the craziness of it. You'd have to have multiple heaters in an apartment. In rooms, depending on the size of the room, this is just an easier, simpler, less expensive way to do it, even though we're paying for the temporary roof. But okay,
It's expensive.
we've just finished the management report. Doug, do you have anything else on this matter? I don't wanna go backwards, oh,
No,
okay.
just to clarify this, so we're putting back the ones that,
We're putting
we're putting
back-
back the ones that we were told to take down, because what did they say it was against, like?
Let me elaborate on it.
compliance to-
When
okay.
we were told to remove the temporary insulation, what happened, the Best Squad building inspector deemed that insulation as storage. And we were told,
Yeah.
we were shut down and they were told to
Yeah.
remove it. We complied, they came back, they removed the stop work order. What we have done since is filed for it as a temporary roof. We're gonna-
Same exact.
Same stuff.
Same thing, but this time we're actually gonna board it. So it'll be.
Because it wasn't.
There'll be
held
the
down.
insulation down with a wood plank boarded on top of it. So then it becomes kind of one singular unit instead of 100 small pieces.
Because the objection was that things would fly away, they wanted
Correct.
rates on it.
That has since been approved.
Okay,
However, because the inspector, a lot of this is subjective to the inspector when they come on site. We want to have a meeting with the Best Squad inspectors to review it, say, here's the new plan, it's been approved by the Department of Buildings. Do you accept this as well as a safety standard? And we expect them to approve that as well.
And we're gonna go, listen, the Best Squad has not been our friend. We're on a hit list for Best Squad. They just love this place. So it hasn't been a good 2 or 3 years with them, since they told us what we had to do to meet the standard for the new
You're not
requirements.
alone, they're nobody's friend.
Well, they love us. Anyhow, we're now to the second item on the agenda, committee reports. Ann Friedland, with an I, only I's in her name. I'm sorry, the motion was printed incorrectly. I apologize, Ann. Why don't you take the middle, can we let Ann take the middle seat right here? Middle school? Thank you, Ann.
Thank you. So I'll just, by way of introduction, since I haven't been here before, I'll mention that the SNS 2012-2013 committee, we invited all members. I, as chair, invited all members from last year's committee and accepted all applicants. We've been meeting monthly since June. We've had 5 full committee members with 8 to 17 out of our total 18 committee members attending. We have 3 architects, 2 contractors, 1 engineer, 2 current board members, and many past board members. We've passed, let's see, we have monthly minutes that we circulate to the committee afterwards that contain the agenda, the attendance, and the minutes and any motions that were passed. We voted on all of 5 motions during these 5 meetings. There have been no votes against any of the motions we've passed, at most 1 abstention. Our first motion just involved our organization into task forces to address each of the construction issues that we believe are within our committee scope. Second was about exhaust fans, which wasn't so relevant by the time it came to pass. Our third and fourth motions were on Irene, and our fifth, which I'll read now, is on the sanitation, a new trash compactor proposal. And this occurred after the October 2nd site visit that a number of board members attended, as well as a number of members of our committee who could attend during the workday. So the motion, I'll just read it, that we passed unanimously is that, the SNS committee recommends that the MHHC board take steps to obtain a city-specified containerized trash compactor and site layout drawings for the northeast corner of the property. However, owing to the current lack of important supporting information on critical site-specific design, such as MHHC staff loading provisions, coordination with recycling bins and cardboard balers, and associated safety considerations and costs, the SNS committee strongly recommends that it participate in the review of complete site drawings and bids, as is traditional at MHHC. Special SNS meetings can be called on short notice as needed to accelerate the design and bid review process. I want to mention that we have 1 architect in our committee who designed an installation of one of these compactors. It was a commercial installation, an interior installation, and we also have a lawyer who works for the New York Department of Sanitation. She recently approached her colleagues who work on this. They said that they have there are a variety of designs for these compactors, which range from what she calls, or her colleagues call, El Cheapo, which requires the staff to directly manually throw bags into the compactor, to more expensive, what they call the Cadillac versions. So these can affect the sighting of it, and so on and so forth. So that's our motion.
We need
No,
someone
wait,
from the
wait.
board to move it.
No, it's from the committee, it is moved.
No, a board person needs to move the motion.
No, not from the committee.
Yes,
It's moved.
because she's not a board member.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Just one person.
You're right, I apologize, you're right. She's not the board person, that's correct. Who's moving it? Maitri moves it. Who's seconding? John seconds it.
No, you don't need a second.
Go ahead, Alfred.
You don't need a second.
No, Maitri moved it, we don't need a second, right? Okay, so now,
John was first.
John's first?
Yeah,
Okay.
just a quick question. You added some words here that didn't seem to be here, so which is the motion? Like strongly recommend, there were some other things I think you added.
MHHC staff.
Yeah.
This is the exact wording that was passed. The top one is the exact wording. I was given to understand that people write out the motion. So if there's any differences in wording, please refer to this, which is
To what you
exactly
just said.
taken from our agenda.
The one I gave to the board, yeah. I'm gonna give it to you.
That's different from what she read.
She read out something different.
Yeah.
So the motion we're talking about is the one you
Yeah,
read out?
I reworded it slightly. Basically, in our committee, we generally take the view that we're making recommendations to the board. So that's the wording we pass amongst ourselves. It says, this is what we recommend. So if there's it doesn't, I don't understand, that doesn't sound like a motion to me. The S&S committee recommends, and then you
It
vote on
starts
that.
with that MHHC board takes steps. That's where the motion would actually.
Okay, so we didn't word it, I guess, in exactly the appropriate. So if you want to reword this in a more appropriate way than what I just read.
No, I think it's understandable that it's the board, that you want the board to take an action.
I think what she has is different.
There are little words that are very different from what she read in the package that we were given.
Well, I took it off the bottom of the page, which marked the motion. The bottom one says the motion, that's the one I lifted.
And
That says that's the motion, so I lifted the motion.
I think she just.
She's ready from the top.
It wasn't
You're
that,
okay.
yeah.
And
So which-
can we use the one that's in the board package?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, no, use either one. They're meant to be.
Okay, so we're using the one that's in the board package. Good, okay. Now,
Well,
anybody?
then maybe you should read the one in the board package.
All right.
Since it's
I'll read it,
different.
I'll read it. It is moved that MHHC take steps to obtain a city-specified containerized trash compactor and site layout drawings for the northeast corner of the property. Northeast corner of the property being LaSalle and Amsterdam. However, owing to the current lack of important supporting information on critical site-specific design, parentheses such as staff loading provisions, coordination with the recycling bins and hardboard barriers, and associated safety considerations, parentheses, and costs, the S&S committee will participate in the review of complete site drawings and bids. Special S&S meetings will be called on short notice as needed to accelerate the design and bid review process. Is there anybody that wishes to speak to this?
Yes.
Alfred, go ahead.
Yes, I think we should take out,
You're amending
yes, I
by
know.
deletion, striking by deletion.
Striking by, yes, because.
From where to where, Alfred? First say from where to where.
Well, first the rationale. Well, okay, I'll say first. From however, the second sentence, through cost, that is however owing to blah, 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 down to cost, then starting with the second sentence says, the S&S committee will participate. And the reason for that is that statement, that the S&S Assistant Directors Committee will participate in the review of complete site drawings and bids, basically assumes that middle portion.
Right. Right, that's why they're gonna be involved.
Right, which, yeah, exactly. So those are the types of things that the committee will participate in, so there's no need for them in the actual motion.
Okay. So speaking to the revised motion by deletion, Dan?
I'm not speaking to that specifically.
Well, we gotta speak to that first, Dan. We gotta dispose of that
I
now.
think you should just
read it the way it would sound with the deletion.
I can read
Can you-
that. I'll read it.
Okay.
It is moved that MHHC take steps to obtain the city-specified containerized trash compactor and site layout drawings for the northeast corner of the property. The SNS committee will participate in the review of complete site drawings and bids. Special SNS meetings will be called on short notices needed to accelerate the design and bid review process.
Thank you.
Right, we have to discuss this?
Yeah, we're gonna do, we're discussing as I read it now.
Yeah.
This piece we're discussing.
Yeah.
All right, Chief, go ahead.
No, is that my tree first? No.
Ma-
Okay.
Why don't you
Do
ask,
we
why
ask,
don't we
yeah,
ask,
that's what I'm gonna ask
Ann what
her,
she
whether
thinks
she
about it?
likes that.
Oh, well, we can answer, sure.
You likes this one?
I think that's fine. I think we were just trying to explain, you know, that we can't just, you know, say, you know, that we need to be able to review what's being proposed and that there are important considerations of siting. And we really don't know which compactor, you know, we need to see how it's gonna be loaded, and that, you know, right now we have, you know, how the trash is transported to it and so on and so forth.
No
You're gonna
problem.
be doing all that.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I wanna say I was on the committee last year, we had no input at all on things like the chimney. So we have an experience last year in our committee that things we felt should have come to our committee did not come to our committee. And we think, we wanna make sure that going forward, all the expertise we have stacked up in our committee gets used. So we wanna transmit
Well-
that we've had a negative experience in the past.
This motion agrees with the bylaw of what this instruction should do. There's no
Yes,
problem.
yes, that's the first one.
Right.
I just want to make a point of order, this is in general, but, no, just about,
Oh.
about when there's an amendment to a motion. It's just a question of courtesy to ask the person who wrote it. if-
Right.
If they like the change, but actually, once a motion is, on the table, it belongs to the voting body.
Right.
I just wanted to make that, but I think it's certainly, correct and polite and courteous to ask the person who wrote it.
So.
But it's not, ultimately, it's the decision of the.
Right,
people.
so if I may, just to move things along, we have to vote to accept this change, but it will not be accepting the motion. Then we have to,
Right.
the motion will be before us with the change.
Okay.
If I may we proceed to vote on this change first. We're all good?
We don't need a real vote, do we?
Well,
By consensus?
Yeah,
I
I don't know.
Let's,
No, I think you need a.
I need a real vote.
It's-
I need a vote to make the change, because this is an amendment, this is amending the motion by deletion. So that's what we're doing.
We need
All
a
right?
mover and a
Yeah.
second.
All right, well, Alfred made the motion. Who's the seconder?
I'll second it.
John Buscarell's the seconder. You want to speak one more time
Yeah,
before?
yeah,
Go ahead.
just one more time. I think, yeah, the middle part, when Alfred wants to delete that part, can we just do like a whereas, like a reason of that? So it's either deleting it,
It's-
not.
The whereas is not important, it's the motion that's important, and as long as the committee has the authority, which it's imbued with in the bylaws, we want to allow that to occur. We have no problem with it.
Right.
So it's been moved, seconded, we're now to a vote. All in favor of this change? It is unanimous. Okay, now, we can discuss this motion, or if you wish, I think we all understand it. May I, you want to discuss it? Go ahead, Dan.
Because of the, well, first of all, I was not on the site visit. Couple of questions. What's the general footprint of this, or footprint of these, or the range that we're talking about?
30 feet long, 15 feet wide,
Sounds right.
and that leaves 3 feet on each side of the unit, front, back, and sides. I've forgotten exactly what the height of the platform is. I believe it's about 3 feet of concrete that is sunk into below the asphalt.
And there's rails put in, because this sits on rails, because it's got to be pulled up onto a truck.
Now,
It's gotta go back.
rails are rolling rails as opposed
Right.
to rails on the outside. Okay, so.
Rolling rails, right.
Right. So, I mean, my one question is, when you're saying the northeast corner of the property, are you saying abutting the northeast corner of Amsterdam and LaSalle Street?
Actually, more abutting the, what is Medford.
Med food,
Okay.
not building four.
Not necessarily abutting, but in that area.
It's not gonna be under building four. The purpose is to put it at Med Foods.
Okay.
It is a fully sealed container. There is no smell, There is no garbage remainder. When they move it, there will be nothing on the floor. It will be spotlessly clean. It is like nothing, it is nothing like, I just want to be clear, it is nothing like the ones on Broadway. That is filthy, disgusting garbage collection. This will be the cleanest garbage collection you can get and the least smelling garbage possible in the world.
And it's also not loud when the augers are compressing the garbage. It's surprisingly.
So I know we sort of like decided that, you know, it shouldn't generally move from the northeast area of our property. But you're talking about basically putting this garbage thing on the street wall, on the, you're basically making it.
That's a bad assumption. Let me just explain. I think I know where you're going, so let me just explain this. Sanitation department has a booklet this big, which Tom has already called them again to make sure what our options are, and here's our options. You have to follow the book. Now, as long as you follow the book, and that usually comes from the bidders, the guys that are gonna get these bids to come and bid on the work and tell us what it is, they know what it is, because they're all professionals in this garbage collection business, this particular thing. Now, here's the two issues. The first issue is, what does the lease of Net Food say about using that driveway? That's the first issue. That is now in the hands of Dean Roberts. We are waiting for an answer. It is our belief that they have no right to that area to enter and use for delivery. That they are a business that has to load and unload on the street. That's the size of the business. Now, if that's true, this does not have to go in a way that wastes a lot of that space. It can go in a configuration that makes it, as long as the Department of Sanitation can go in without making more than one turn off the street. In other words, backing in because they have to back in off LaSalle into that spot. They can go straight in. If they can go straight in, that'll be the piece that's right in front of, right along the side of Net Food. Long, this way.
That's what I mean. So you're saying like you're running a
not along parallel.
Along Amsterdam.
Long parallel to Amsterdam, but not on Amsterdam.
Not on Amsterdam.
But equal with Net Food.
That's what I mean. That's on Amsterdam.
Net Food is a deep store. It runs from Amsterdam.
Because it's hard to imagine where we're from.
We're talking about we already have enough problems with, I'm probably gonna vote against this, and the reason being is the words northeast corner, all right? Because, we're making a major sort of zoning and, planning decision right now with, based on this language. And I think that there's some considerations there, and, I would want some thinking to go into, how we can cite this, and also possibly use that site to continue our commercial endeavor down to LaSalle Street, which would do a good job of
I didn't hear. Just say it again, please.
Somebody had some gas or something like that.
Probably.
Anyways, yeah, Amsterdam Avenue. If you have a vacant lot now, a stinky vacant lot that basically stops any kind of of a commercial strip from continuing there, right? And now you don't think much of it now. Hold on a second. You don't think much of it now because it's the way it's always been, right? And 125th Street is the way it's always been, and that's just the way it is. And we have what we have. There's no street wall on the other side of Amsterdam, and that's the way it is. But if you can put a decent store, or whatever it is, on that corner, which would A, make money for us, B, be more physically attractive, and C, probably continue the business, the commercial traffic towards 125th Street. You have more of a, 5 years from now, we're probably looking at a much more vibrant 125th Street. That's that where you've got more of a continuous path there. Yes, you got grand houses there, so.
I'm just saying that very simple or suggestion whether, because it seems that I know the SS committee will participate in the review of waste management.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we should have the word there.
That's the only people they could deal with. It's
Yeah,
the Tom Tribune.
It's in our bylaws.
It's the bylaws.
Section 51.
one,
But, I mean, like, shareholders, when they see the motions, they don't go back to refer to the bylaws. I think if we make this here, because they read the yellow pages, and then, of course, they won't think just by themselves, but I think if with the management, then
Where do you
we'll
wanna
see.
put the words, chief?
And
Yeah.
to participate with management, is that
Yeah.
what you want?
Uh-huh.
Is that
That
okay?
would be good.
You're good,
Yeah.
Lon.
I don't care, I'm fine, I just wanna know where you want it.
Yeah, that's fine, so.
Yeah, so, we'll
So-
participate with management, right? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
when they're
Okay,
ready
fine.
or something.
Now, I think I'm the next speaker. Number one, there is no money to build any building on that corner. Number two, sanitation department said there is no other place in this entire development that will be acceptable for garbage. That is the place.
Is it right on Amsterdam?
That is the place. They are very clear about it. They've told us that. That is the site. That lot is the only acceptable site for them to put this garbage solution in. There's three things that are going into that garbage solution. One is the container that's sealed and the garbage actually goes in, all the real garbage goes in. The second is the baler for the corrugated cardboard, which will get us money back. Not tremendous money, but it'll get us money back. And the third is the recycling, the 3 recycling bins that we must purchase as part of the recycling system that has to be for bottles, that have to be picked up by a different truck than the truck that picks up the main garbage. So that is the whole garbage setup. There's 3 pieces to it. The way it goes is dictated by Department of Sanitation, because the first one, it's the tank, is the key. Where that tank goes, and we don't know yet if we are able to do it the straightest running of the driveway, because we're waiting to hear from our attorney. That's the key, okay? So I think I covered those 2 things, but Ann, you want to say
In
something?
the past, I've heard that if you could leave it where it was, they're now saying you can't.
Leave what there
That
was.
you can replace the existing quote-unquote greenhouse with the trash compactor. Now they say they can't.
No, they don't want it there. They,
Who said that?
the sanitation, they said that's the cutout, that's where it has to go. It has to be in that cutout. And we can't make any other cutouts, and we can't make any other cutout. We can't change the configuration of that part, of that space.
Because I was told by Tom Gerbino that it was easier to take, that it's actually easier for the Department of Sanitation in that original greenhouse space. But maybe that's.
Well, if you put in the greenhouse space in, here's the issue about it. You're putting it in visible sight, and you're putting it on the building full windows.
Yeah, I think.
The
that's
whole
the-
idea is to avoid, and if I may, the whole idea is to avoid building 4 having it under their windows.
Yeah, but the question is, you said sanitation could not.
But I was told sanitation said they wanted that cutout. That was the cutout they
If
needed.
that's the case, then
Well,
Right.
I mean,
I'd like to hear that again, because I did hear
Well, you're
something
gonna hear it.
different from Tom. You know, so he definitely, I thought he said that the existing place is fine, and you just mentioned that the problem with the existing place now is building 4, which, so
And
I'm not.
sanitation.
We're, in our committee, we're not, you know, these aren't the sorts of decisions we make, but what we do wanna do is review a design that we can read, a design paper that indicates how our staff is gonna load it, and we'd like to all evaluate that. That's all we're saying in this motion. So I see no reason not to strike the northeast corner of it if you don't like that part. Because all we just wanted to say, you know.
Well, that's still the northeast corner, just a matter of what part of the northeast corner.
Well, if you,
It's
so
still the same
that's not
property.
an important part of it for us. So it's, by all means.
It's still the northeast corner. There's no difference. That whole building, that,
But that
and
wasn't
shopping
our
is the northeast
intention to
corner.
make some statement about that. It was not, and
Who?
this is a question
Doug,
for me too.
I'm sorry, Doug. Doug?
That's okay. Given what Ann just said, the point of this motion is not at this point to locate. I think Dan has a point that's worth at least considering. Is that we've only got so much viable commercial frontage there. And if we don't need to decide this tonight.
We do.
I think we should,
No,
we
we're
talk
not
about
gonna-
the northeast corner.
That's exactly feature.
Ann just said the point of this motion has nothing to do with the northeast corner part.
The whole area is the northeast corner. It's the only viable place to put this thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, where's
I
that
think
door?
it's just a magic.
So there's,
Where northeast, you have described, or earlier described a somewhat different understanding of northeast corner than
No, but
maybe.
the area she's speaking about, about what they were speaking about is the greenhouse. The greenhouse is the northeast corner. That whole thing is the northeast corner.
Okay, well,
It's a huge piece of property. It goes from the corner of Amsterdam right up to the driveway of the exit driveway of the office, that private, the parking lot.
Well, I feel,
You mean including where the, anyway, I just want to stress, my feeling is, this is not, we don't need to address this issue tonight. I think we should take this part out of the motion and discuss later.
You just want to take the words northeast out?
Yeah.
Fine.
I was
Doesn't
just
matter.
gonna say,
Drawing.
slight layout drawings for placing it on MHHC property. I mean, it has to be DSNY approved.
For the property, just put for the property.
Sure,
Layout drawings for the property.
yeah, sure.
Okay? We took it out, it's fine with me. Doesn't matter, it's gonna come out the same way, but if we're ready, let's vote. You could take out all the words you want, in the end, the sanitation department rules. That's the bottom line here.
Just chill out.
I am chill. I just want you to know what the problem is.
Are you voting?
Can we vote?
Yep.
All right, all in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Go out, and let's get it started. And keep the SNS informed, thank you. Okay, next up, Detta Ahl, chairperson of the Amenities Committee. All right, I'm sorry, Detta, your turn. I apologize.
Okay. So I want to start with the second motion first.
Okay,
Okay.
that's the fee for workshop, right,
The
Detta?
fee for the workshop is to be charged per person. The fee shall be $75 per year for the first person in the department and $50 per year per person for any additional workshop members from the same department. Each person joining must be a shareholder or a bona fide resident with a formal relationship with the co-op. This fee is paid to the corporation and should be billed once a year on the maintenance statement.
Someone has to move that, am I correct? Andy moves it? Okay, it's moved. It's now up for discussion. Anyone? Relax, Detta.
I mean, I can hand this out, I just wrote just a little bit about our deliberations.
Okay,
So,
fine.
I pass it on.
I will, but we got a piece of paper coming around that.
Well, it was,
That is your.
huh?
Anybody? No.
You were ready to vote?
But I would be, but I have to give one stop. I'm going to give it to Detta. I'm going to give it to Detta. All right. Yes. Does anybody need?
It's just some of the background reflections that
Right.
went into this motion,
Okay.
in case there were any questions.
So this is not going to be part of the official, we don't need it. Any discussion? Any? Good. Let's go to a vote. All in favor of this motion? It is unanimous. And that'll be January, correct? Netta? It goes in effect January.
Yeah,
Good.
I mean, if you
It
could
should
be.
say that,
yeah.
it should say.
It's going to say, I think, with everyone's consensus, we voted this motion, may I say, to be
This will go into
instituted
effect.
in the month of January 2012. Is that okay?
2013.
2013, 2012 is bad.
I'm sorry, I don't, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't put the date in there.
To be instituted,
I would say starting.
or to be started, all right,
Well,
so,
Starting at the very end.
Starting.
January 2013.
thank you, Andy.
January 1?
Yes.
January 1,
Well, it's a maintenance statement.
2012. Yes, it goes right on the matrix. 2013.
We're gonna make it retroactive.
I'm hoping for the best. No, I'm just hoping for another repeat of this year.
Boy, it's not the January
It
statement.
was a good year. Okay, Detta, are we ready for number
Okay,
two?
yes, the second motion, I'm gonna read it as is, but in light of information I found out subsequent to making this motion, I think this board can simplify it and can have a much more simplified motion. But I'll just read it out. Do I need to even read it as is?
You want me to read it?
Maybe you could read us the simplified version.
Okay, well, I didn't even make, I just wanna say, we're not gonna probably move the darkroom sink, so that, this is one of those provisions, because we're probably, what, the small sink that you see here is fine. It just needed a cabinet next to it for some counter space next to it. So that was the issue. It wasn't that it was really too small.
Okay.
So we're not gonna move that sink.
So why don't we do this then? If you want to simplify it, let me ask you a question. If we say the board of directors accepts the diagram plan provisionally with final details to be worked out, period. If we do that, and we have this plan, is that a satisfactory motion?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, because I want to explain also why we don't need the sink on the existing roughing, because this is not a drain, it's a sump pump. When you take down the wall of the darkroom, the plumbing goes away.
So these sinks will disappear, these two
No,
things?
we were saying in our meeting
Right.
that this sink had to be on top of where the existing drain is.
I got you.
Not where they drew it. And now we're saying, put it where you want it because it's a sump pump. And actually, the closer it is to the east, the better.
Okay, so if the motion reads, but let's see, if Detta agrees, I think we can amend this motion to the simplest form.
Oh, I think there's one thing that isn't quite a detail, which is this wall.
Right, I mean,
There's one wall,
Yeah.
the dark room wall. There-
Yeah, I mean,
The storage wall.
Yes, the storage
Yes.
slash dark.
maybe you could, I drew in, I mean, just so you can know some background, I mean, this, I'll pass these around, but this was the dark room. This was the multimedia room.
Right.
That was the original amenities committee proposal. The executive committee came back wanting the dark room, the media room, and some
The
space.
square piece.
And they wanted it pushed out.
Right.
And the amenities committee did not object. And this room right now has a diagonal wall,
Right.
but it was all taken down to do some repairs in the pump room.
Right.
So it was never put back. So, also this wall was drawn to hit the column and then start
Right.
up on the other side.
Right.
It might be easier to just make it a flush wall on the outer side of the column.
Okay.
So it's a small departure from how it's drawn. just so
It
you
doesn't
know.
change the plan, it just changes the way it's gonna
The
look.
only thing that plan is that since there is gonna be no darkroom, not now, and we don't need to reserve space for any potential future darkroom, and the wood shop finds it very important to be able to access their wood pile from both sides. And that's the one thing they are asking for, is to have a little more space for the wood pile.
So the whole area is gonna be the wood pile? Is that what we're saying?
Well, we have to move the wood pile to the other side because this is, for corporation access, we have to keep that wall free
Okay,
anyway.
just so everybody understands. When you look at this diagram, this wall is the corporation wall, the one that runs
Well,
down
it
here.
has equipment that has to be
Right.
accessed.
So this wood pile that's here, that says wood pile, will move to the wall here, this wall, so it's changing sides, all right? Does everyone
Yeah,
understand?
and we're not gonna
It
have,
changes.
we're not gonna have that little room. The wood pile will just,
Go right up against the room.
and I drew it in red on this other one.
All right,
I-
so,
You can, I only have
Wait,
3
wait a
of
minute.
it.
Did you see?
okay, we're not doing that.
So the wood piles in the whole,
Yeah, the whole
thing.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not really that big.
All right, so this is what it's gonna look like, right, Andy, you agree?
That is right, and I mean, for
Okay.
that matter,
That
who
room
knows?
was tiny.
So-
We could put some storage in the back of there where paint goes or something like that. The point is, there's not gonna be this wall. That is the point.
Okay, so here's the thing. The board of directors accepts the diagram plan as amended provisionally with final details to be worked out.
Yeah.
Is
and-
that good, as
Yes,
amended?
yeah.
And we'll keep these two together so it makes sense? Is that all right?
Yeah.
As amended provisionally.
This, so this, everyone, this wall is going away. This wall.
I got you.
And who's going to move this?
And,
All right, now,
and just
Now.
also, this diagram, this is proposed for wet clay. But, I mean, we have, We will have to investigate the expense to add the electricity and the plumbing. The other room is already set up.
Well, here's the thing, so you understand.
Yeah,
We're approving the plan tonight. We're not approving $1 in expense tonight. Because we have to know how this is going to be done. We understand there are plans on how it's gonna be done and who's gonna do things and who's gonna pay for things. But we have to understand what that's gonna be. We're only approving this as the agreed upon design of the board of directors for the property of the shareholders of Morningside Heights Housing Corporation. The next time we meet, we need a plan of action that we will approve, hopefully we will approve. We're not approving the plan of action, we're approving the plan as to how the changes will take place. Agreed? Everyone understand that?
And take into account these details, like what goes.
right, I mean, it's
what will
definitely
go
gonna
in.
be for ceramics use, I guess we just wanna investigate the cost to put in the electricity and the plumbing. If not, it could be for the, what do you call it? The glazing and the storage, and.
Anything's possible. What we know, that area is gonna be for ceramics, the other area is gonna be multi-purpose finishing room, there's gonna be a wood pile, there's gonna be a painting and common room, that's where the nude models go, in case anybody's interested, and there's gonna be a woodworking room, all down there, okay? Now, as to how we're gonna get this done, that's another meeting with a recommendation coming from your committee as to who's doing what and what is the cost, and then this board has to make a determination on what money the board wants to spend, as opposed to what money the
workshop
has, because they have a nice chunk of change.
Yes, they do.
Okay?
And then we.
All right, I'm sorry, Chief. I thought we moved it.
Only then I moved it.
It wasn't seconded? No. Andy moved it,
You moved the
and no
first
second.
one.
Not the second.
No
Oh, not the second, okay, wait, I'm sorry.
Move it in.
Who moves it? We're changing the resolution to be correct, to have the way it's gonna be, right? Okay, who's moving it? Alfred moves it, okay. Now it's moved. We don't need a second, it's moved. Okay, now Chief.
Okay, so it's very simple. Since we are approving the plan, as Larry said tonight, and then this is not a final drawing. I hope like next month, when they propose the, how do you say?
Implementation?
The implementation and then the cost, the board and the management should have the final drawing.
This will be redrawn. I think, Andy, that you did this
No,
one.
this is Christian.
Oh, can we get Christian in?
I mean,
I would guess.
I can draw, I just didn't have time
Wait,
to.
no.
No,
I like
next
Christian's
month.
work. Not that your work is bad, but his work is really sterling. Can we get Christian to do the changes?
I know.
Yeah.
We have a meeting Thursday, you know.
Right. Do you need this back to, you know what has to be done, right?
Yeah, no,
So-
I made those three.
All right, so I'm leaving this here as part of our record, okay? Now, is there any other discussion about this agreement? Hearing no other discussion, I'm sorry, Doug?
Just a couple of questions. What night is the new model?
Monday.
What night is the decided line thing?
What we're basically settling on is the division of territory, right?
Yes.
Yes.
When this thing started out, there was
Yeah.
some disagreement between the ceramicists and the woodworkers about who was gonna get what patch of land.
Right.
Are all the factions agreed on this plan, then?
Yeah.
Does this represent a consensus of all the
Yeah,
folks in the
because
workshop?
what happened before, you know who's seated right now is the dark room, which had only one member and wasn't active, and the media group / old computer lab, which had 2 people running it who were questionable whether they're residents, and it wasn't really off the ground yet. So before.
And a little piece of that room.
Yeah, and a little piece
And a
of
little
common
bit more
room,
to square it up,
yes.
Dan, to Doug.
Before you had, this was a woodshop room, then it became sort of destroyed when there was pumpkin work. And then you had ceramics wanting to take this whole area, and the woodshop group objected. And meanwhile, this was still dark room and media room. So then this does solve it, because this gives them the same square footage they were looking for. And it takes 2 rooms for two groups that were semi-defunct.
Okay.
Is your question, does every single person agree?
Well,
Or are you
well,
talking
I mean,
this is-
about, are you talking about factions?
We're
Sort of
looking
like,
at majority.
sort of like Middle East politics there, but my question is really just, do all the factions agree on this division of the territory?
I mean, as much as I could get communication from each faction, yes, but no, I
Well,
Does anybody
Well, but
object?
what's the executive committee of the workshop?
no, the executive committee is fine with this, but they primarily represent the ceramics group. I mean.
And they're fine with that.
They are fine with it.
All right.
It was,
yes.
it
Look.
was their counter proposal.
Enough,
Yeah, so-
Dana, enough. We could beat the horse
Well,
to
but
death.
I'm
We
here
have
and Doug has questions.
I know,
haven't
but we
been-
have the answer. We have the answer. Let's not go further. We have the answer. We don't have to expound upon it. It's now 10 of 10, okay? I'm on the way to we got 2 more reports and then we're in closed session, okay? So we're here longer than I even expected, and I promised someone I would be done fast tonight. Obviously, I've lost complete credibility with that person. Anyhow, knowing all the information we know, we are now prepared to vote. All in favor, say aye. It's unanimous. Done. Thank you, Detta, for your very hard work. We look forward to next month's report.
Okay,
And
the money.
the money, yes. Well, how you figure the cost, the walls, the whatever has to be done, and who's doing what, and who's contributing, and who's not contributing, and then we'll figure out what to do. Okay? All right. Now, next person up. No, next person up. Andy.
Yes, I have 20 minutes.
Go ahead, Andy. Knock it
Okay,
off.
so I have 3 items. One is just very briefly the budget. We went over the budget.
Go ahead.
And right now, we are looking at a negative variance on our net operating income, it says, which is our net operating budget. We're net 403 minus. We're under, we're in a 403,000 unfavorable deficit. But that, 2 of those items is mostly the fuel, that's 426,000, and there's also 103,000, which is insurance, and that's a timing issue. So if you were to subtract those out, we would be 288,000 ahead of the game with respect to our expenses, and that's Russell and CSR gets a lot of credit for keeping our costs down,
And we're still gaining, I think.
we up. So anyway, so yes, it gets better every month. We also have a minus $162,000 income variance, and that's arrears for rent and maintenance are the biggest items there. So at any rate, that's all I have to say about the budget. So the other item is we at the finance committee we talked a lot about parking, and we did not reach consensus, and we're going to have a special meeting next week to talk about parking again, and only parking fees, that is.
Okay.
And finally, I put out a memo. I should have had one more person proofread it. I have one typo in it which is, yeah, on the second page, I said 1 so it's not where so there's a number, which is what did our minimum used to be? And our minimum used to be for operating reserve was 1,750,000. 1,750,000, and I slipped a digit. But fortunately, that number appears 3 times, and I got it right twice.
So that's all that matters.
The tables and the footnotes is
666
correct,
batting
but the text
average.
is wrong.
Okay, thank you, Andy. My turn, very quick. This is my report, the President's report. The first thing is, I want to thank Thomas Rubino, Gil Melendez, and George Buck for outstanding service during the changeover period from the boilers, the temporary boilers to the boilers. They were here round the clock on the temporary boilers because we knew we had to keep them running, and they did that. And that is an outstanding thing, and I really, really can't thank them enough for doing that. They said, I spoke to them and they said, this is the job. We had to make sure the shareholders were okay. And they did what they had to do. So, great thanks to them. Second, I want to thank Sharon Lockhart Carter and the members of the Grounds Committee for the outstanding job they've done in the fall with their decorations of the gardens with the fall chrysanthemums and other things they've put in place, as well as this wonderful new thing that's occurring between building, it started now between building 6 and building 1. They, because of Sharon, we now have the beginning of runoff prevention being done. If you look between building 6 and building 1, the walkway, the curved step walkway, you will see on both sides that a material, fabric, a special fabric that dissolves over the course of time has been put down. Under that is the grass seed. And the ground has been graded. And what happens is the grass will grow through that material, and therefore you will not have a dirt runoff. And this looks like it's going to be very successful because the first layer of it had been put on the right side at the top where the benches are. That was the first initiation of it, and that changed the way our grounds look. By the way, the grounds look better, but also we gain because dirt doesn't just run down into our drains, the public drain, the open drains we have. So this is a really big thing, and these two things have never been thought of in all the time I've been here, and I really thank them very, very much for doing what they've done. You also know that there's going to be pruning of the LaSalle Street trees, and soon people will be getting letters to move their cars because we have to give them 15 days notice, and then these branches must be pruned because our arborist, Bill Logan, excellent guy. He has done a survey of our entire place and designated all the areas, but this is the one that has to be done right now first because we got to get the cars out, we got to get these things pruned. So that's my report. I'm finished. We're now in closed session. Thank you everybody for coming. I'm going to let you leave, and then we're going to do the closed session. Yes, bathroom breaks for anybody, but do not take too long because I